Yo, my legendary warriors, Chronos here, and you already know it's about to get crazy. Welcome back to What If Deku Had Solo Leveling System, Part 6. If you've been loving the insane power-ups, next-level fights, and Deku becoming an absolute menace, then you're in for a treat. Before we dive in, hit that like button. We're aiming for 100 likes to unlock the next part. And if you're new here, subscribe and join the Unstoppable Legends. Because this series, it's only getting better. Big shout out to Michael Zilanka, the mastermind behind this fire concept. Go check them out and show some love. Alright, no more waiting. Let's get into the action. Korea during the night Izuku came back. Sir, the portal is showing. A normal desk worker came into an office shouting. Gunhigo, the chairman and an XS rank hero of Korea, had his eyes widen. Is it stable? The serious look given by the old but friendly chairman shook the worker. Yes, sir, nothing came out yet. He nodded. We have 7 days. Evacuate Jeju Island immediately. Send available heroes to the island, but only those B rank and up. I will have a call with our S ranks tomorrow morning. The worker looked at the man. What exactly is it, sir? What we will deal with more often in the future. Gun, he replied. Inside he thought, I need to call Izuku too. The chairman did explain what will happen and what that portal was, but not all of the information that he received from Izuku was said. Next morning, Izuku was woken up by a phone ringing. Seeing his clock being 9 a.m., he wanted to get the phone, but his hands couldn't move. Ignoring his senses, he looked around to see Rumi and Gabriel on either sides of him. Having a small smile whilst looking at Rumi, but a confused smile seeing Gabriel, he shook his head and used the skill gravity manipulation to get the phone to his ear. Izuku Midoriya speaking. He heard some shuffling but let the person continue. Good morning, Izuku. It is me, Gunhigo. The voice spoke over the phone. Morning, Gun. Is everything all right? Izuku asked while still having both of his sides taken. He realized that this talk will be serious, so a more serious expression appeared on his face. He could hear the old man sigh. You will see it on the news shortly, but the gate appeared yesterday at 8 p.m. Izuku froze. We have less than 7 days. Sighing, he answered the unasked question. I will be going to South Korea in 3 days then. The teen with 2 beautiful women next to him could swear he could feel the old man smile. Thank you, Izuku. I will be meeting you at the Seoul airport. Cool. I think Maruko will be joining me. Izuku said that due to both girls listening to what was being said. Thank you once again. We will also contact the Japanese Hero Association and some other S-rank heroes for help. The duo talked for some time until Izuku spoke up again. Izuku nodded. I will start to prepare and inform Nizu. See you in 3 days. With that, Izuku hanged up. Sighing, he spoke to the girls. I don't know why Gabriel is here, but in 3 days I will be going to South Korea for the gate. Rumi just nodded. I know, and I will be joining you there. Gabriel, glaring at Rumi too, spoke up but smirked. Darling and I will be enough. Before the glares would escalate into a cat fight, Izuku intervened. Please calm down. Then looking at his strongest soldier, he had to ask, Gabriel, why did you sleep with me anyways? Izuku could see Rumi smirking with the corner of his eyes, but what Gabriel said next floored both of them. Oh, that woman allowed me to date you too, darling. Wait, what? Izuku asked with widened eyes and some stutter. Where the hell is Gamer's mind when I need it most? Yesterday after you fell asleep, we talking and she agreed for her to share you. Rumi butted in. I said no such thing. Izuku just sighed and said, I need to speak to Nizu. My class should be returning tonight from island, so don't destroy anything. With Nizu, Izuku ignored the fighting that was happening outside the dorm and walked to his teacher's office. Morning, Nizu. Ah, Izuku, perfect timing. This is what is being shown. With that, Izuku was shown news from South Korean island named Jeju. A reporter that was on site was there with local heroes, police, and some rank Korean heroes guarding the gate. Good morning, Korea. I am Kim and I am here reporting about this portal that was formed yesterday at 8 p.m. We see that Hurios and police are guarding it whilst the citizens are evacuating Jeju Island. We will connect to Gunhigo, the president of the Hero Association. Then a separate box appeared on the screen where both Izuku and Nizu were watching, showing the man. Gunhigo, do you know what this portal is? You could see the old man nodding. I do. What you see there is called a gate. This sadly will be the beginning of a new era for the world. This shocked Kim, the reporter. This gate is connected to another world where monsters reside in, And those so-called monsters have one goal only: to kill humans. Kim asked, "Sir, what do you mean?" A shaky voice was heard from the reporter. A painful sigh escaped the man's mouth. "A gate like you are seeing there is classified as an S-rank gate, meaning monsters of at least S rank in strength will be coming out after 7 days of that gate being in the open. How can we stop it, sir?" Now, a lot of people were watching this as major news channels around the world asked the original channel if they could channel it through their network. "We kill them." This shocked them all. Heroes will have to go into the gate before the 7-day mark where they need to kill the so-called boss of the gate. Sadly, the heroes will have to rely on their quirks and non-electrical support equipment. This got the reporter thinking, "How do you know so much, sir?" As discussed Izuku, "I will tell them an altered truth." Gunhee thought Izuku and himself discussed a general plan of what to say to the people if a gate opens naturally. There was a person who was completing those gates before anyone could see them. Sadly, he was too late to notice and complete this gate before anyone realized it was there. This shocked the audience. They didn't know those gates was a common occurrence. The old man continued, "You may know him as the Japanese provisional hero, Monarch or Izuku Midoriya. A part of his quirk allows him to see where some of the future gates could be located, allowing him to complete them." Kim asked another question. "Wow, I didn't know that Monarch did that. Would you be able to continue explaining?" Gunhee nodded. "He will be coming here in 3 days to Korea. Even though he is an international level hero, S-rank gates are nothing even close to S-rank villains. Monarch only completed one other S-rank gate and he barely survived it. He had his shadow army and another S-rank hero with him." This shocked everyone hearing this. This was serious news. "We will be going to enter the gate with 6 of our S-ranks. From Japan, the number 6 hero Maruko, number 3 hero Hawks, and Monarch with his shadow army. The numbers were low because a lot of the people were scared going in, even the remaining 3 S-ranks that Korea had to offer." They continued to chat about the heroes and what of the gate, with Gunhee explaining the gate system. "The gate system is tricky. There are the normal ones from E rank up to S rank, but there are the red gates and double gates. The E to S rank gates are where there is one boss which you will need to kill. The best advice for the heroes wanting to enter those gates: have at least 10 E rank heroes with 1 D rank for the E rank gate and so forth. Like with the S rank gate, we will have 8 S ranks with 1 national level heroes, but additionally Monarch has 2 shadow soldiers ranking in the low national level marks. The double dungeons have 2 bosses, with the second boss being the rank higher than the previous boss. Finally, the red gate, Monarch completed 2 of those already and is probably the most dangerous one out of them all. You will need to defeat the boss, but it will be harder to locate as you are transported to a whole different world. 24 hours in that world is 1 hour in our world. Any ranked gates can change into the red gates, and those gates have a minimum rank of B." This once again was a shocker, but he continued, "We are confident in defeating this gate, as there is an S-rank healer from our midst. Monarch Shadows and himself could heal others too. There are strong fighters for all ranges too. For precaution measures, we are evacuating the island and have multiple A-rank heroes from our nation, Japan, China, and Russia." "Sir, what would happen if a gate break occurs?" "If a gate breaks after noon, able to complete it in 7 days, the monsters will come out and start attacking every human they see." This continued for a while, with Izuku's phone being bombarded. Rumi made Izuku a hero account, the shadow hero Monarch, with his name under the title. Before, his following was of that a top 10 hero of Japan. Now he is somehow in the top 20 in the world. Damn Rumi. My phone will explode from those notifications. The two watched for a while. After the report, Izuku spoke. "So yeah, I am leaving for Korea in 3 days. Nizu chuckled. "Gunhee informed me that he will call you earlier." Izuku nodded. "I will be leaving Dracula, my 10 winged angels, and the bison that Aizawa took down for the summer camp. They can contact me anytime and I can see through their viewpoint. So if anything happens, they will help. 1 high elite knight, 10 knights, and 1 elite. The shadows can take down all but high S ranks, but with their regeneration powers, they will be hard to defeat." Nizu nodded in thanks. "Thank you, that would be beneficial. Though it would be funny seeing Aizawa seeing the bison again. Can you not tell anyone bar Aizawa-sensei about this? I believe that we have a couple of spies in the nest. It is guaranteed that we will have a spy. We will see what it will become of the training trip." Izuku nodded at that. Later on the day, "Izuku, you didn't say you were doing gates with monsters," Mina shouted. This got the attention of 2 women who were still having a glaring competition upstairs. "And what happened outside our dorms?" Kyoka asked. "Damn dude. Didn't know you will be leaving for Korea. Denki commented. Did you leave early from island because there was a gate? Hanta asked. Guys, calm down. Izuku said that as he was coming out of the communal kitchen bringing out food for all of the travelers. He prepared curry for everyone, so it was all good. Before he could continue, two noises were heard. Izuku! / darling. Then two figures were on top of Izuku. Wait, what? This was the response of everyone of Class 1A, seeing two women jumping on Izuku. Zuku! This which threw me out of the window, Rumi commented. Gabriel threw back a response. It wasn't my fault. Darling is mine too now. Girls, wah, he was stopped when someone else shouted. Who the fuck are you, woman? An angry blonde shouted from her pretty little mouth. Oh, a dog, commented the angel. I am the future wife of Darling. I am Gabriel. Rumi had her eyes twitching. She accepted that she will be sharing Izuku with this angel, but the rivalry just began. I am not a fucking dog, you extra. Katsumi now has to be restraining by two other female teens that had their eyes twitching. Izuku just sighed. He patted both Gabriel and Rumi on their heads to calm them down. Now eat up, you had a long day of traveling, and in 2 days all of you will be going on a training camp. Yeah, a chaotic night. 2 days later, Izuku, Gabriel and Rumi now waved back to 1A and 1B as they left by their buses. During the 2 days, Izuku wanted to level up some of his skills that he thought would be the most useful. He wanted to find Nana, so sending out over 100 shadows per day, still found nothing. But talking about Nana, he didn't discover any more skills that he was apparently gifted, though he leveled up both Float and Black Whip by 2 levels each. Surprisingly, Rumi accepted Gabriel, but they still have their rivalry quirk often. It is sad that Izuku couldn't come with us, Toru stated to the class. And he was excited about this. Now we have to with him lucky in Korea. Rikido spoke. TCH, the nerd doesn't need luck. She was still angry at Rumi and Gabriel. Heian lost her chance as there was no good moment to ask them. But she now understands that there is a chance to join him. Oh, did she say that he smelt better? Now she had to have a tissue over her nose. This will be good. Master was worried that Izuku will be there, one female spy thought. She didn't know that there was another spy in her class, but the other one knew of her. Hitoshi Shinso, he was invited on this trip instead of Izuku. The purple-haired boy respected Izuku somehow, after he discovered that he only awakened his quirk a couple of months before UA. His admiration went up. Even though he failed his first round of the sports festival, Izuku actually came to him and introduced him to Aizawa, who took the purple-haired kid under his wing. Now he too wished Izuku luck in his battle. With 1A, the class of 1A with Hitoshi all got out on a cliff facing a forest. They met up with 2 of the 4-man group called the Wild Pussycats, who had a small kid with them named Koda, a cousin of Mandalay. After some introductions with Katsumi nearly blowing up Pixie Bob as her hero crush wasn't there, although she did get Katsumi back as she used her quirk, Earth Flow, to get all of 1A of a cliff. With that, 1A was left to find their own way to camp through the forest filled with her own creations. Aizawa, an ex-insomniac, was thinking how he is practically in charge of 12 shadows that he was sure could easily defeat him if they regenerate enough. Secretly, he was glad that the bison was with him. He became fond of that shadow. Don't get him wrong. He had no regrets killing it, but now he can have an overgrown cat. When he was alone, he spoke to the shadows under him. At camp, I want 5 of you angels to stay in the Wild Pussycat's shadow and Koda. I want the bison to stay with me and another angel to go to Vlad's shadow. The 4 other angels, I want you to make rounds around the camp and try to see if anyone unauthorized is close by. He then turned to Dracula. Dracula, you are the strongest one here. Aizawa could swear that the happiness of this vampire Grand Elder was pouring out of him in waves. I want you to stay near the student's general location at all times. We also need to find if there is a spy here. With that, he left for the camp. Later on, when Aizawa arrived, the shadows discreetly did their job finding their targets or get into positions. He had to wait for another 5 hours for his students to get through the forest whilst fighting against mud constructs that Pixie Bob created. Internally, the teacher was thinking that this was a good exercise preparing for gates. After the announcement from South Korea, every country was on a lookout for those gates, but none were found. Some believed that Izuku was taking them down, some believed that this is the end of the world, and some believed it was Asian propaganda. When he noticed the students, he smirked seeing their battered appearance. Groaning and moans of pain were heard from his class. He had a discussion to allow him to show and tell everyone that there will be only one shadow as a healer with them. Minutes later, Class 1 became in panting and bruised also. Clapping his hands, he got everyone's attention. Listen up. If anyone is hurt or anything, come here. I have asked Izuku if we could have one of his healing shadows, as he will need all of his shadows at Jeju Island in 2 days' time. With that, a 10-winged angel appeared behind Aizawa, freaking some of the students out. As planned, Aizawa will make them believe that only one shadow is with them and they are only a healing type, making a false sense of security if anyone wants to infiltrate the camp. This is a 10-winged angel. The combat prowess of the shadow is around D rank, but their healing powers are around high A rank. This shadow has mainly one actual use, and it's healing. We will only use this shadow today, and if any of you sustain an injury during this camp. Ibara Shiozaki, a religious woman with vine hair. She came up to the shadow and spoke. An angel that has fallen. Oh dear child, what has Monarch done to you? I will release you from your fallen state and you shall go back to heaven. She tried using her hair, but Vlad stopped her. Some anger shone on her usual impassive face, but was stopped netherless. Ibara, even though you are religious, you cannot deal damage to our healer. The shadow could have been an angel, but still we will need it to help you guys. Vlad reprimanded her. Aizawa continued with his and Izuku's plan. It will take longer to regenerate. Also, you will have a lot of pissed off students after you. Ibara looked behind her and she could see 90% of the students look murderous at her because all of them were in some kind of pain. A gulp escaped Ibara's mouth seeing that. Mandalay then spoke up, whilst ignoring Pixie Bob looking over Tenya, who had a massive blush on his face. We have prepared dinner for you. Eat up and get rested, as you will be cooking from tomorrow onwards. Koda helped out with dinner, but otherwise actually spent time with the only visible shadow. With Izuku next day, Gabriel went back into his shadow whilst Rumi was with him sitting on a private jet that Hawks owned. The number 3 hero was a fun guy to talk to, pretty relaxed, but Rumi did warn him not to say anything about his quirk as he works for the commission. Going to the airport was a fuss once again, as Izuku, Rumi and Kiego attracted attention due to their popularity. Whilst in the air, Izuku was introduced to Hawks properly and the three chatted away. When they landed, Gunhee personally came to greet them, much to the shock of Hawks. The three were led to a stadium where 6 Korean S-rank heroes and surprisingly 2 S-ranks from China. With the addition of Izuku and the 2 S-class heroes to either sides of him, a pretty intimidating sight if they let out their aura but with calm facade. Now 10 solid S-rank heroes and an international level 1 were all standing around waiting for Gunhee to announce the plans. In the dungeon, I can feel it, we need stronger soldiers. We need the ultimate soldier who will lead the empire. A large white ant said to her eggs in front of her. There was something off though, one egg, it was bigger than the rest. The large, nearly see-through shell, we could see a large insect shaped similar to an ant. The queen of the insect's nest continued with her speech. The time is coming for our children to feed from the outside. For the glory of the empire. Strike fear into the enemies who will try to stop us. For the glory of the empire, the insect from the large egg thought. I will strike feet into the enemies who try to stop us. I must strike fear into the enemies who try to stop us. You must become stronger than anyone else. The queen spoke. I must become the strongest. With that, the insect broke through its shell with its sharp claws. With it being free, for insect-type wings escaped from its back and screeched, Etherush, feast and continue to feast, and continue to become stronger, my child. With that, the queen was eaten by her child for it to gain more power. Outside the gate, Noon realized that the reading went up to high S compared to its previous low S. In an underground secret layer, same day as the meeting with Gunhee. Villains, some of them are broken people, some who just want to kill, and some who were there for some ideals. Tamura received an update about the camp locations and was told that only one shadow, a healer type, stayed in Japan whilst the rest of them were in Korea. He was actually fascinated by the gates, but he would need to actually go into one to how they are like. He spoke up to the Luage of Villains Vanguard Action Squad. In 2 days' time, you will all attack the students of UA during their training camp. Kurojairi will be sending you to your specific locations that is mentioned on the paper in front of you. He looked around, seeing some bloodthirsty grins, some smiles, and some he couldn't even see. From our reports, there will be only one of Monarch's shadow, a healer type. The rest of his shadows are in Jeju Island with him, so we are lucky. Even if you destroy it, it will reform back. The strength is apparently D rank, but their healing ability is about a rank. He could hear some grunts of disapproval, but what can he do? Disintegrate them? The strongest in the group were 2A rank villains, Muscular and Moonfish. They both wanted in for the fun and food. He thought that Spinner and Himiko Toga are both C rank at least, but their skill set can increase that rank. Dabi, Compress, Magna, and Mustard are at least B rank from their quirk or how they use it. Most of them didn't have proper ranks due to them being more of a non-public type of villain. Although there is a wild card, Twice, a B rank villain, but if he gets over himself being cloned, then he is an S rank villain. There are 6 heroes. The Wild Pussycats, they are a high B rank hero team, mainly concentrates on rescue. But remember, they do have claws. Eraserhead is officially a C rank hero, but in reality he is an A rank hero with his quirk and experience. Finally, Vlad King, a B rank hero whose quirk is blood manipulation. Luckily his own. He let it sink in for a while. He learnt that he cannot be rash and actually plan attacks. From his last meeting with Izuku, he realized that his childish behavior will only make himself weaker. He needed to show that he is going to become stronger. Netherless, he continued, I want you to capture a purple-haired kid named Hitoshi Shinso, and if possible Fumikage Tokoyami, a bird-faced kid. You will also be joined by an upper-tier Nomu. I know you all are strong, but there are some kids in that class that are strong too. Any questions? Can we kill those brats? Muscular asked. Tamura nodded. All but the 2 mentioned targets. Receiving a bloodthirsty smile back. Flesh. Moonfish spoke. Yeah, after you do your job. Do we get dental treatment? Twice asked. Heck yeah. Tamura just face-faulted the split personality shit. He didn't know Pro Parley was annoying but kind of fun at the same time. With Izuku, after the planning, and with Izuku and Maruko telling them their experience in a gate, they all became more serious. The reason why only China and Japan sent their heroes was to scout what those gates are about, and for their own safety reasons. They all decided that they will be getting inside the gate on the 5th day of it being opened. After coming from Seoul, they all traveled towards Jeju Island where chatter occurred. When arrived, they quickly helped with some of the evacuation, and Izuku sent out his shadows on patrols to just make sure. When Izuku went towards the gate, his eyes widened. Guys, this gate level is increasing steadily but surely. One of the Korean Hurios asked, What do you mean? I told Gun-hee that it felt like a low S rank. It is now a high S rank gate. He explained. What could make the gate level rise in power? A Chinese hero asked. He was too curious about this. The boss is getting stronger in a way. Izuku told them all. Rumi looked at the gate. It is also larger, the gate. One of the 6 Koreans asked, Does larger mean stronger? Izuku shook his head. Not always, but it does mean that there could be large monsters. Hawks pipped in. Any ideas? We have the basic plan, but that is all. We are going in blind. Izuku nodded. That are gates for you. There will be more gates popping up. The times are changing, but this means we are going to change. He then took some stuff out of his inventory. These are some of the stuff I brought for you guys. The capes can withstand up to mid-S rank punches and piercings. The weapons can deal more damage to those insect-type monsters. Finally, I want each of you to carry those 2 potions. It was a green and purple respectively. The purple one reduces your fatigue, and the green one is if you are injured and a medic isn't near. So like potions from games? Korean asked. Yes. I don't want any casualties during this raid. They all thanked him as it was a nice gift to them all. Izuku also did that to build up relationships with other countries like China. Of course he won't tell them where he got it. With 1A, day before mission, the morning was already pain. Waking up at 5 a.m. just to train until breakfast wasn't their cup of tea. When 1B joined them at 6 a.m., they were horrified. Even Nito felt pity for 1A seeing them all in pain. Katsumi had her hands in boiling hot water to make her pores larger and for her hands to get used to the heat. Then she put her hands up in the air, causing a massive explosion similar to her gauntlet explosions. Even though she trained with Izuku, it was mainly her skill in close-quarter combat. Her quirk improved of course, but not that well. She did score 823 meters compared to her 700-something at the beginning of the year. Heian was tasked to produce as many swords she can continuously. She was eating some foods to keep her energy up. Momo had to do practically the same exercise, but she produced Russian dolls. Rikido was with them, but he was doing exercises whilst eating sweets. Ejiro and Mashiro were grouped up together. For the red-haired, it was to improve his base form, whilst for Mashiro was to increase the strength of his tail. Near them was Shoko. She had to produce a large amount of ice, but in a certain shape. For example, a large block of ice in a cube shape. Shoto was near her, but he was in a tub of water. He had to change from ice to fire. Inesa was flying around with 2 massive rocks. He was practicing his precise control of air without his gauntlet. Shinso was tasted to train in hand-to-hand combat with Tiger whilst trying to change his tone of voice to fit others. Talking about voices, Koji was screaming his poor heart out so his voice could reach further distances. Then there was Denki. Having his brain fried probably wasn't a good idea. Kyoka and Mina were both using a wall that Tsuyu was climbing with her tongue up. Mina was shooting a high concentration of acid whilst Kyoka was using her earphone jacks to stab the wall. Nito was going around both classes asking if he could copy their quirks and reluctantly asking for other students help him understand their quirks. Meanwhile, Ken and Shota both were relaxing under an umbrella whilst the Shadow was looking over the kids' training. It was the 5th day. All of the 10S rank heroes and the national hero were doing their final preparations. Izuku called out to them as a final speech type of thing. Everyone, today you will see what a gate really is. Sadly, we must kill all of the monsters inside and not let any of them escape. We will do our best, but everyone outside just in case be prepared. Everyone shouted hi/yes, the ones located outside mainly were heroes and law enforcement with some army personnel. With that being said and done, the 11 walked towards the gate with Izuku leading them and waved back. This was the final sight that 1A and 1B had of their friend. With that, they went back to train. The dungeon was similar to a large cave system. Buzzing could be heard. Everyone, they are coming. With that, the 9S ranks that didn't know what they properly looked like had their eyes widened seeing the large beasts. Izuku used his skill, fire manipulation, to blast the ants into corpses. I did not expect that. One of them said, that was probably a scouting party. Rumi mentioned looking at the dead bodies. Large ants with wings with a red outer skeleton around them. And for Izuku they had gray names on them. Izuku nodded. After we complete this raid, I will be giving you guys each a 10% share of all of the profits that we can get. This was also a method of getting them more motivated. A Chinese hero asked, 10%, why are you not getting anything and from what? He was genuinely surprised at this action. I don't need any money, but the crystals you occasionally see can be worth a pretty penny. Also, the corpses can be sold to make more advanced gear for you guys. They all had wide eyes at that. This got a little bit of a spark in most of them. With that, the group continued walking forward, but they had no luck finding anything. All of them began to worry, but after 15 minutes of walking they entered into a large space. That said space had a lot of broken eggshells on the floor scattered. There were places where an eaten ant or two was located, but that wasn't what scared them. The light that Izuku was producing on his hand shone thousands of eyes all around them. Some of the heroes gulped seeing this. Then suddenly they heard a harish coming from further in. With that being said, the insects started rushing forward towards the heroes. Due to them all being S-ranked in strength and had the cloaks, none of them had any injuries, but the amount of dead insects was surprising. Izuku made his shadow soldiers come out, which surprised some of the heroes by how many they were. All but one insect was killed during their fight. The one insect saw the portal and started to fly faster. It saw light and food in the forms of humans all around it. The so-called humans had a horrified look on their face. They just realized that this is the kind of monsters the top heroes were fighting. The army started to shoot at the insect, but all of the rounds were deflected. This started to irritate the bug, so it began to go towards one of the soldiers. Suddenly, a Korean rank hero came to it with his enhanced strength quirk and caved the skull in killing it. The said hero wiped his forehead saying, I put a lot of my power in this punch, and it nearly survived. The Koreans who knew this hero knew that he wasn't lying as they saw the aura coming from that hero. The world saw that monster as it was broadcasted. All of them realized that modern weapons like guns wouldn't work on the monsters, but their quirks or some kind of cutting method. This was an S-rank gate that even a rank heroes can get tired quickly. Shota and Ken watched this with Vlad King having his eyes widen at that. He just hopped that Izuku, his friend student, will be okay. With the 11 Hurios, after defeated the 2042 insects with the help of Izuku's shadow army, they continued forward. They had to have a small break so some of the heroes could puke after so much killing. But their respect for Izuku only grew. It also helped them having some kind of weapon, as using their quirks for around 15 minutes straight was tiring. Some of Izuku's angels healed them up, taking the buildup of the lactic acid out of their system. They continued to walk another 10 minutes when above them tunnels were seen. This time one of the Chinese heroes used her quirk called Earth Manipulation, and with the control of her quirk she started to crush the tunnels into themselves one at a time. The 11 could hear some cries from the insects that were 2.5 meters tall. But Noon really cared as they were already fed up with them. Hawks, who was originally tasked to build up trust with Izuku and see what the gates was about, wanted to kill Madam President. He knew that they would have to kill the monsters, but this was too tiring. He wanted the hero life to be relaxing. He tried using a sword made from his feathers, but that didn't work. Doing something he didn't do for a couple of years, he used a secret part of his quirk, hardening. This part allowed Kigo to make his feathers, or at least some feathers, as hard as diamonds, and this did work. Cutting down the insects with his given weapon and his feather sword was quite effective. He still wanted to kill Madam President. Don't get him wrong. After the tunnels were blocked off, they continued forward when they heard the sound again. Eteruke. Most of them got shivers down their spine hearing this shout, until more ant-type monsters came towards them. With 1A, B. Darkness was coming over them now. All of them were dead tired after that day's exercise. Heian actually tried to talk with Koda, but that didn't work well. She was nearly hit in her stomach. She dodged that strike luckily, but the kid was still angry. Now, after eating their food, Mandalay informed them that they will be doing Walk of Courage. Sadly, before the group could go, Aizawa captured 9 of his students for remedial lessons whilst Nito followed them too, much to his embarrassment and glee. Ejiro, Rikido, Momo, Katsumi, Shoko, Mina, Denki, Hanta and Mashiro wouldn't be sleeping until 2 a.m. again. Whilst that was happening, the remaining 11 students of 1A were paired up, but Shinso, who was replacing Izuku, went with 1B, and this caused the two classes to be even. The shadows felt a shift in the air, some bloodlust emanating from some locations in the forest halfway through the game. The bison popped out of Aizawa's shadow, indicating that there is danger. Ignoring the surprise of the students in the remedial class, Aizawa acted on instinct and kicked the door, smashing Dabi's face in destroying the clone. One of the 10 winged shadows emerged from Vlad's shadow, and the 2 were left to protect the 10 students. Of course, the students were shocked at the development. They tried to help, but they were not allowed to act. Some grumbling was heard from Katsumi, especially wanting to blow people up. In the forest, Dracula emerged with the remaining angels. The other 8 angels all came out of their shadows of their partial owners, to the surprise of all students and teachers. The one remaining angel was looking around. This was when Magna and Spinner attacked. They didn't expect to be incapacitated so quickly by 3 shadow angels, as they thought they were D rank in attack power. After capturing them and making them go unconscious, much to the shock of the wild pussycats, they spread out except for one. The shadow looking over some of the students saw some sort of mist. Realizing it was poisonous, it went towards the middle where it was the most dense. The guy producing it tried shooting the angel, but it didn't do anything but cause a hole in the angel that was quickly healed up. Shooting another 4 rounds, it tried to do anything, but after a punch from the 10-winged angel, Mustard fell unconscious. Fumikage and Mezu had an opponent that had some sort of bondage costume from a mental institution. There was a difference though. Moonfish had its mouth wide open with some type of metal making its mouth larger. When its teeth shot out to get some flesh, Mezu went in front of Fumikage to protect him, but was stopped by one of the angels shooting a light beam towards the teeth, shattering it. The 2 students had their eyes wide open seeing this, and the next moment another angel came from behind Moonfish and punched the villain from the back of its neck, making him go unconscious. One of the 10-winged angels took Moonfish with them to the base, whilst the other one got the 2 students back towards the base. Ochako and Tsuyu were both walking down when Himiko Toga appeared. The frog girl had her eyes wide open and was about to say something when a knife was thrown by Himiko. Ochako went in front of Tsuyu to protect her and had the knife cut aside of her left arm. The female villain smirked and shot out a tube from her back to collect some blood whilst teasing the 2 with their new nicknames. The blood collection only collected some of Tsuyu's blood as it impaled her, though a second later some light beams were shot at Himiko, making her dodge. Not wanting to be on the receiving side of those beams, she ran away whilst the angel stayed next to the 2 students, healing them up. Tsuyu had a thought though. Did Aizawa-sensei lie to us about these shadows? They are a rank in strength, not D rank. Koda, who was watched by one of the 10 angels, was sitting over a cave when he heard a noise, then some chuckling coming from his left side. Looking up, the moment he saw the villain's face, anger and fright built up in him. The killer of his parent appeared. When the villain was about to get close, 2 shadows appeared, Dracula and the angel. Knowing what to do, the angel took Koda with him whilst the vampire will battle with Muscular. Firstly, Dracula tried to bind the muscle freak with shadows, but as that didn't work, he tried to punch the villain away. This didn't work as Muscular continued to produce more muscle to protect himself and mock Dracula, the Grand Elder Vampire. With that, he thought of giving this one to his liege to turn into a shadow as Muscular can become a strong soldier. With that, he increased his speed, cutting some muscles off, causing some pain to erupt from the villain. Whilst this was happening, he slashed the head of Clean Ely. In a kick move, the vampire used the skill Shared Inventory to allow his liege to turn Muscular into a shadow soldier soon. With that, he left towards a green speck that can barely be seen. The fire that Dabi caused with his cremation or blue fire quirk was raging in front of the cabin. Aizawa had to battle 2 more of Dabi's clones with the bison soldier to help. The fires started to go down slowly with the help of some angels that formed a perimeter around. For angels were guarding the perimeter with the bison. They had already tied up Magna, Spinner, Moonfish, and Mustard. Ragdoll was nearly taken by the League of Villains, but she was lucky that a shadow soldier was in her shadow, otherwise she didn't think she would survive. There was still a problem of 8 students still not being accounted for. Hitoshi and Tetsutetsu were running towards the cabins when they bumped into Itsuka and Yosetsu, who were running away from a green thing. That green thing was an upper-tier Nomu who had a lot of devices on its arms, such as a chainsaw, a large hammer, and so much more. All of their quirks were useless bar Tetsutetsu, as Yosetsu could not wield anything to the Nomu. Itsuka with her big fist would most probably cut her, and Hitoshi didn't even think the Nomu could talk. When the Nomu started to rush at them, Tetsutetsu with his manly axe activated his quirk Steel to protect his friends. Luckily, a black blur came from the cabin side, kicking the Nomu away. Seeing it was one of Izuku's shadows? Wait, there is more? All of them thought. But seeing as the shadow was pointing towards the cabin, they left Dracula to deal with the Nomu. Using the same strategy like with Muscular, the S-rank shadow quickly subdued the Nomu, who was an A rank at best. Finally, after defeating the Nomu, he placed it into Izuku's inventory. Hitoshi thought they were safe, but then was found in some kind of a marble. It was only a minute later when the 3 other students realized what happened. They quickly went to their teacher saying that, and with a discreet nod to Aizawa, one of the angels went to a shadow of a villain who then teleported all but Magna, Mustard, and Moonfish, who Dracula managed to get in time. After the villains captured Hitoshi, and one of the shadows going into one of the Lav's shadows, they all just sat there quietly whilst Izuku's shadows healed anyone and started to get the fire to stop with the help of Koda. Tenya had to ask this question. Sir, why was there more shadows than the one? This got everyone's attention, especially for 2. Sighing heavily. It was for additional protection, but as you see, we did not expect them getting the hold of Hitoshi. Aizawa cursed under his breath for that. Now they all had to wait for the emergency services. Now how should he explain things to Izuku and Nizu? Suddenly Dracula came up to Aizawa bringing him something, taking what the shadow brought to him. The teacher's eyes widened seeing what it was. I see. I will inform the class. Now turning to his class, the gate in Jeju, seeing the worried glances from everyone, Ken brought the TV to them and they all saw Izuku being kicked out of the gate with some bleeding. Sometime earlier, they have killed around 10,000 insects and all of them started to begging to get tired. This is the boss room most likely, Izuku said to them. If these insects broke out, South Korea would have been nearly wiped out. Korean hero stated. Izuku nodded. They all wear around high A to low S rank in strength. I bet not only South Korea would have suffered. Entering the final room, they saw only one insect looking at them, and it screeched, "You killed my brothers and sisters. Ku, ku, ku." With that, an ungodly amount of killing intent or bloodlust was produced, causing all but Izuku on their asses bar Rumi, who was on one knee. Hawks looked shocked at that, and seeing Rumi starting to stand up slowly. The regeneration skill did wonders for her improvements, but with said improvements never fully prepared for this. When Izuku used his own skill, Bloodlust, it quickly overpowered the ant's bloodlust. Using this opportunity, he rushed towards the boss, but with more more normal soldiers came out. Izuku now just realized that the name was Light Red. It was probably a LV.1 captain. His shadows started to attack the soldier ants in a magnificent clash. Body parts were beginning to fly. Some explosions occurred and a lot of light attacks. But when he saw that something was added to his inventory, the body of Muscular, his attention was gone for a second. The new ant boss saw this distraction and with the minute gone, using its top speed, it punched away a Korean hero. Getting out of the distraction, Izuku caught up towards the insect and punched its guard that only pushed the ant 2 meters away. He got one of the angels to heal the man up whilst he continued to fight. If you want, you can leave. This boss is low intonation level. With that, the boss and Izuku at their top speeds came crashing down towards each other. Shockwaves emanated from them, Izuku tried using some of his skills such as spear throw and vital strike, but neither worked well. The 10S ranks could barely see the duo move. Now they realized why Izuku was asked to come with them. Ant King is using skill. Evolution. Shit. Izuku didn't know what happened, but the danger rating of this king just risen. What Izuku didn't know, before the 11 came into the gate, the ant had a meal made up of 500 brothers and sisters. With it just finally evolving into a stronger form, the aura just increased. Run. It just evolved. Some tried to protest, but Izuku's shadows took them outside of the gate. The people waiting outside saw shadows carrying the S ranks, but not Izuku, with Rumi thrashing in Beast's arms. One of the reporters asked, "What happened?" One of the Koreans replied, "The motherfucking boss evolved. Monarch was beating the ant up, but then it evolved into a more powerful being." Noon could have said more, as what they saw next surprised them all. Izuku was flying out of the gate, but not in the way a flying quirk would do, but more of a punch. He caused a small trench until he stood back up and shot over to the gate. What came out scared the living shit out of people. A 2.5-meter tall dark red ant. 6 thick arms protected by a thick but light exoskeleton with 4 wings coming out of its back. Ku! 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 I will eat you and become stronger. This put a lot of people on edge. "I don't know how you did that, but I cannot wait to see you die," Izuku whispered. With that, the two rushed at each other. With each clash, shockwaves came out, making the people around nearly fall over. The two were now up in the air, the ant using its wings whilst Izuku used his skill. Float. With having only 21,000 MP, he decided to try and finish this battle with his gravity attacks. Blue. Mana added to his skill. Gravity Manipulsion. The attack that was formed on Izuku's pointer finger flew at the Ant King, wanting to move but feeling some kind of absorption power coming from the small sphere on condensed gravity. When the attack hit, a hole was formed in the monster's body. All of its right side was practically destroyed, from its stomach and lungs to his wings and arms. The final thing Izuku did was using the skill spear throw, with his spear killing the boss. Lowering down to the ground, he panted out, as the use of blue can cause the fatigue level to go up quite a bit. He theorized that he needed to increase the skill level to improve the strength and the repercussions. Though he smiled seeing the notifications he didn't really see from the beginning of this battle. You leveled up? 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 You leveled up. He saw that he was still a little far from the others, so coming up to the monster he said, "Arise. I will call you Baru." With that, a shadow came out. Sharp claws with blue tint and an ant face with white shadows with a blue tint was seen. The ant kneeled down. "Greetings, Ku. My liege. Ku. Izuku had his eyes widened. "You can talk. You didn't see it in our battle, my liege, Ku, but I have a skill called Gluttony. Ku, it allows me to have the same Ku powers as the one I ate." Izuku just nodded. It was interesting. Baru LV.13. Captain. He knew he had to agree on promotions for Igris, Baruka, and Raphael, but he can do it after he goes back OT his group. Gabriel came out of his shadow. "Well done, darling. Everything inside the gate was collected as you commanded." "Thank you, Gabriel. We will talk later, okay? I also need to see what was happening in Japan." She just nodded and went back into his shadow. Izuku was walking towards his group. He will deal with the 6 new levels and other notifications later. "So, how was it?" The rest just gave him deadpan looks. They now understood that if Izuku wasn't there, then they would have been dead. One of the Chinese heroes then spoke. "That boss. If you were not here, we would have died." Izuku nodded. "It has a skill called Gluttony. If it eats someone, then their quirk and memories transfer to the ant." Rumi just came up to him and hugged him. Then a Korean hero then spoke. "Those ants were high a rank at best, but without those cloaks and weapons we would also be dead after the first group." It was Hawk's turn this time. "It was something I must admit, and those gates will be more common as time goes on." One of the reporters came up to them with their phone. "There was a gate sighting in Canada, actually. Their heroes are going to deal with that, but are asking for Monarch to tell them the rating for the gate or have something that can measure the gate strength." Nodding, looking down at Rumi. "I will be meeting you in Japan. I need to go to Canada, then island, okay?" She sighed but nodded. "I will be seeing you then." With that, the two kissed and Izuku started to fly to the direction of Canada. He completely ignored the conversation that the 10S rank heroes were having with the journalists. When he thought Noon was looking, he used Kaki's power to travel to Canada. Feeding the Kwami, he walked up to the gate where some heroes and military was located. Showing his hero provisional license, he walked up to the gate whilst greeting them. This is luckily a C rank gate. I recommend that 10 C ranks and 1 B ranks do this gate. But the more the safer. They talked for a bit and they asked if he could be there just in case at the back, which he agreed. He then pulled out something from his inventory that measures gate strength. I will be giving it to every country. This is a gate measurer. What it does is allow you to sense the power of this gate. The final reading is the boss strength combined with some of his underlings, meaning that this gate's boss is C rank whilst the smaller monsters are D to C rank. The man who was the head of Canada's heroes then asked, "What would happen if we don't have a B rank hero?" Understanding what he meant, Izuku replied, "I would recommend more than 13 C ranks. It is better to have a healer in some kind in most raids though." They continued to chat when the people decided to go in and see what it was about. It took only 45 minutes to finish this gate. Some heroes puked out after killing the amount of monsters. Now they understood that if they get out it can cause trouble. It was a gate with ogres. Izuku secretly arose the boss getting a normal grade shadow. He didn't really mind what grade he arose monsters at this current moment. There were no big threats bar AFO and more gates, right? Anyways, he also got 20 of those insects as his shadows, making them Elite Knight LV.1. He does need to increase his shadow capacity one way or another, one reason being how cool would it be having 100 or so of the same species. During the raid though, he did nothing but give some helpful tips such as mana ores and what they could do with the dead ogres such as making weapons. After getting back outside, Izuku continued talking when the president of the Hero Association came up to Izuku asking him a question. "Monarch, can I have a moment of your time?" Izuku nodded and came a little closer to the man. "I want to offer an agreement." Looking confused, Izuku asked, "An agreement?" The man nodded. "This could be your first one, so let me explain. As you are a national rank hero, or at least a hero in training, which was finalized with the World's Hero Association, some countries will want you to work with them, or if something happens like a villain attack that we could deal with. We Canada have a low percentage of villain attacks, but due to our large surface area, gates would be more common to have a breakout than, for example, UK. In this agreement, it says that we can ask you for your help without dealing with the Japanese Association. Of course, there will be some positives for your end." Izuku just nodded. "I can agree on that, but if Japan is in trouble, I will be staying to help, but whenever that happens, I can always send my strongest shadows to help. Otherwise, I can be one call away." The man handed Izuku the papers with more details. With that, Izuku read through it and was happy that he could help in more places than Japan. After signing it, he gave it back to the man. Nodding, that man then asked Izuku, "Would you mind staying in Canada for a while longer?" Izuku produced a smile on his face. "I would like to. I will probably leave in a day or two though due to school." "No worries." With that, the two continued to talk. There was one problem though. Izuku's phone couldn't catch any signal in that location or for a long while. With heroes, next day, they failed to call Izuku once again, and the phone just told them, "The person you're calling cannot connect to your call." All Might frowned at that, but Ed Shot then asked All Might, "Isn't he flying back from Jeju Island with Maruko and Hawks?" Gang Orca came up to them and spoke. "That was yesterday. He is currently in Canada. Apparently a gate was located there and Monarch is helping them deal with it." You might ask what was happening? This was the next day, and the difference between time in Canada and Japan is around 13 hours difference. Year 1 hero course of UA was attacked and one of the students was kidnapped whilst the strongest of the students was in another country dealing with their problems. Aizawa, Ken and Nizu are going to have a conference whilst the remaining top 10 heroes and other top heroes are there to rescue Hitoshi Shinso and finish dealing with AFO or the Nomu. There was one problem. Even though they found 2 locations of a Nomu factory and where Hitoshi was hiding, the report said there is an army of Nomu apparently waiting to be unleashed and they needed numbers. Izuku and his shadow army would have been an amazing boost to their numbers and manpower. Currently in the room were All Might and Deva, Best Jeanist, Ed Shot, Maruko, Gang Orca, Wild Pussycats, MT Lady, Kamui Woods, Present Mike and 50 other heroes with another 5 being from UA. Tsukachi, who became the unofficial official policeman or detective dealing with the League of Villains, spoke to the heroes in front of him. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, the League of Villains have kidnapped a student named Hitoshi Shinso. We believe that the mastermind is Tamura Shigaraki, but all for one, we thought he died a couple of years ago, but due to recent activites, we believe that he survived the fight with All Might. AFO has the ability of stealing and using your quirks, so be careful with that. There are 2 locations that we will be striking, where one Hitoshi Shinso is believed to be staying and the other is a Nomu factory." They all nodded, They knew the risks of this fight. Sadly, we couldn't contact Monarch, but the shadows that he left with Eraserhead are going to be helping us. This lifted some of the spirit, even though 11 wasn't many. The ones who could feel how powerful some were had odd expressions, especially with Dracula being mid's rank. With Hitoshi, he knew that he will be rescued. How did he know? His shadow told him. Yeah, it was weird, but even with the members of LOV trying to make him join them due to his childhood and the so-called villainous quirk, Hitoshi could see that the so-called leader, Tamura, had something else on his mind. The decay quirk user was on guard, and Hitoshi didn't like that for some reason. Ignoring what the members said, he looked over the TV that 3 teachers are being shown at. Conference. Aizawa, Ken and Nizu all sat in front of the reporters. They told them what happened, but the reporters still had more to ask. So you were saying that this happened because one student wasn't with you? One reporter asked. Her voice made nearly everyone cringe. Nizu shook his head. I am sure that if Izuku Midoriya was there, then more damage would have happened. As Izuku is recognized as national level, they most likely would have gone with a different strategy to deal with him, like the high-end Nomu in Island. Aizawa continued. As most of you saw, the Jeju Island S-rank gate was reported by Maruko and Hawks to have thousands of insects. It was thanks to Izuku's shadows and the support equipment that he gave out that we wouldn't have thousands of monster insects flying around. He left me to command 12 shadows from mid-S rank to B rank. Izuku didn't think anything would happen here. Another reporter asked a question. Do you think Hitoshi Shinso will join the League of Villains? From our sources, he was ostracized due to his quirk in his childhood, and even now. This secretly made the purple-hair kid listen even closer to the news. Aizawa stood up and shook his head. I know the kid, and he would not join the villains. He can become one of the best heroes in Japan, not only with his quirk but his heart. Bar place. Pizza. Smash. Pizza. Awkward silence. Behold the group in the hideout. Noon ordered pizza this time. Then smash. All Might barreled in with his full might to save his student. Maruko smashed a different entrance whilst Kamui Woods used his quirk to capture all of the villains. Gran Torino and Edshot made Dabi, Kurogiri, and twice go unconscious, leaving only Himiko, Tamura, Mr. Compress, and Spinner. All Might quickly took hold of Hitoshi, but when the group started to come closer to Tamura and the others, a glob of goo came from their mouth, teleporting them away. Suddenly things started to teleport into their area. 20 mid-tier and 10 upper-tier Nomu appeared in front of Endeavor and the policeman. All Might left the Nomus to his colleagues whilst jumping towards AFO location. Rumi had one thought going through her mind. Please come home soon, Zuku. She then turned her attention to the 5 shadows who went with her to continue dealing with the Nomus. One of those shadows came out of Hitoshi's shadow, protecting and defeating some of the Nomus. Hitoshi was safely away from the fighting. Gran Torino received the boy from his student before the big buffoon left towards AFO. With the Nomu extermination squad some time before, MT Lady just stepped onto the building, crushing some of the Nomu located under her foot. Gang Orca shouted to his fellow heroes that someone is coming from what he sensed from his echolocation, but it was too late. A massive explosion occurred, blasting most heroes away. Best Jeanist tried using his power of threads to pull others away, but it didn't work like he thought. When the mystery man saw him standing, an invisible smirk appeared and shot an air blast towards the hero whilst complimenting him about his quirk. Luckily, Best Jeanist was saved by Dracula, who was hiding in his shadow. He used his shadow manipulation that grown whilst leveling up, blocking the air blast. He then yanked the hero away to safety whilst he would face off against this villain, whilst hoping that his liege will hear him out. A shadow? Would Monarch be here, or is he still in Canada? Dracula showed no reaction, which just amused AFO further. Not a talker, heh? I must admit, for being only mid-S rank, you are strong. Ignoring what he said, black tendrils made of shadows shot out from Dracula's shadow, trying to puncture the man standing in front of him. After the first wave shot out, with the top speed of his, he rushed towards AFO and punched the man, who effortlessly blocked it with one of his hands. Chuckling, the villain said, having multiple quirks is always useful. Shock absorption and nullification with the addition of some strength quirk does the job well. Then with the hand he caught Dracula and he made the shadow fly away. Dracula, not taking well due this humiliation, turned into his bat form and shot back towards AFO. He detransformed and tried to drop kick the man, but once again it was effortlessly blocked. Then All Might came. Oh, only 5 seconds. You didn't lose time from the Ingiri, heh? The villain said mockingly. Toshinori just chuckled. I was healed and most of my power was restored. He was thankful for Izuku, as now he can go into his hero form, which is still bigger than his civilian form for much longer. Flashback. Izuku and Nizu were sitting in Nizu's office drinking tea whilst waiting for the number 1 hero. When the man entered, he was surprised seeing Izuku. He just came back from training with Mirio. "Nizu, sir, young Izuku. Why was I called here?" Izuku spoke up. "Have a seat, All Might." Nodding to that, he sat down with Nizu offering tea. Producing an elixir out of his inventory, he continued talking to All Might. "This here will heal you up completely and add more time that you could use with your quirk." All Might had his eyes widened. "What do you mean, young Izuku? How could this here heal my time?" Giving the bottle to All Might, he explained, "This here heals the soul and the body. A quirk is in theory part of the soul and body, meaning even if you heal up completely, the soul part of your quirk still won't be healed. But with this, it should heal you soul too, allowing you to use your quirk for a longer period of time than before. You just need to drink all of it." All Might's eyes couldn't be any larger. "Can I?" Receiving nods from both student and head teacher, he drank all of it. It took a minute of awkward silence when All Might started to smoke a little, allowing some more muscle on his civilian form to come back, and his face didn't show a zombie but an All Might fan without that much muscle. Toshinori could feel the strength, all of it coming back to him. He could feel like he could beat 10 AFOs at once. Izuku saw All Might's reaction and then spoke harshly. "I do not recommend for you to be in life-threatening battles anytime soon." All Might nodded vigorously, but all of the participants could feel the number 1 aura returning to him, making it slightly larger than Izuku's. The young monarch had his eyes widened at this fact. He felt Star and Stripes' aura, and it was equal to him then, but now he saw how strong All Might was when he was in his prime. Flashback end. AFO, if he had eyes, then they would have been as large as sources. "Impossible. I can feel you gave away your quirk, but still have this much power in you. I must truly saw that your healer did a good job. Or must I ask, was it Izuku Midoriya who healed you?" All Might had his eyes wide open at this revelation. The man laughed. "A number 1 hero, but still cannot keep a secret." All Might and Dracula just growled. The vampire told the rest of the shadows to start evacuating the entire area, which the remaining heroes joined in, seeing that this battle won't be as easy as some thought. "Dracula, we need to get young Izuku's attention so he can come here." If the shadow could speak, there would be a deadpan. AFO just replied, ignoring the love, just watching it some way away. "There is no way. He is on the other side of the planet, and there is no way of him teleporting here." Then, seeing Dracula laughing silently, the old villain realized that the young man probably did have a way, and it was only confirmed by All Might's smirk. "Anyways, I have a perfect opportunity to defeat you, All Might. I may as well bring him here." That was a smirk that neither hero and shadow liked. What appeared from behind AFO was an ugly motherfucker, if you could say that. Skin that seems to be melting, showing some bones and muscle, 3 eyes that don't match color and dimmed, and the teeth shown were all yellow. All Might had his eyes widened at this. "I think you remember this guy. It is the villain you punched whilst also hitting one Izuku Midoriya." All Might had more anger in his voice than ever heard. "What did you do?" He doesn't swear, but if he did, then AFO would be blushing hearing that. "Oh, nothing. Just improved on him." Chuckling, the slime thing rushed at the two with surprising speed. All Might tried to punch it whilst Dracula tried to slash, but both attacks seems to do nothing. The sludge came over their arms and some pressure was being produced. "Oh, you like it? No attacks can affect him," the villain boasted. All Might with Dracula tried their hardest, trying to get the sludge of them, with even the vampire trying to use his shadow to help him escape. It did nothing, but as the time was slowing down with AFO coming up to All Might with an enhanced punch, someone caught it. Canada sometime before. Izuku was exploring a city when he noticed that on a big screen a fight between All Might and his shadow Dracula was taking place. They were fighting against a villain. Then it clicked in Izuku's head, AFO. Using Shadow Exchange with a 10-winged angel in Japan, he used the skill Shadow Exchange to change locations, leaving a confused Shadow and Pulp. Seeing what was happening with the sludge monster, he said 2 words that villains will start to fear: "Come forth." Present. As Izuku rushed, he blocked the punch from connecting to All Might's head. "Whoa, old man. Why didn't you invite me to party?" The next thing that happened was Baru rushing in and knocking of the sludge Nomi that was apparently an upper-tier Nomu. "Wow, Monarch. So you do have teleportation." Then he looked around him. The camera crew that was in the helicopter also made their camera go around. What they saw absolutely mind-boggled them. Nearly 500, but they didn't know that. They could only see a sea of darkness with some colors surrounding the fight, from tall figures like Fluffy to small ones like Alkanost perched on buildings. It was a sight that many would have trembled upon seeing. Izuku had Gabriel, Mikao, Igris, Baruka, and Raphael all standing behind him. Baru was still having fun with the sludge. "You are strong, I must admit." He used forced quirk activation on Kurogiri and telekinesis to push all with the shouting Tamura away from this fight, knowing this would probably be the last one for some time. "But I am stronger." This was confusing for Izuku as he didn't know what was happening exactly. Then AFO had his arm pointing to the sky, then changed it into a darker black with storm clouds and heavy winds coming down onto the three humans. Gods in human form. An unimpressed look was what AFO got from Izuku. But chuckling, he clicked his fingers, then hell started. "Keep the civilians safe." Izuku shouted to his shadows, tornadoes with some of them being lit on fire and multiple lightning strikes being fired per second. A perfect scenery for an apocalypse to happen. Screams were heard, but the angels started using their light magic to form barriers to protect the civilians. Every shadow was trying to help the civilians and all of the living in the area of 5 kilometers. That is how large the control that AFO had. Baru was having fun with the sludge Nomu, even taking some of its flesh, giving him a larger invulnerability to physical attacks like punches and slashes. Izuku and All Might had their eyes widen. Toshinori then thought, "Was he holding back during my last battle? Was it because young Izuku is here that he is scared to lose?" With an invisible signal, Izuku rushed forward, punching and kicking with AFO. If the weather wasn't as brutal as now, then people could consider this a beautiful dance of the fists. Both punched suddenly with a massive shockwave being created. This got All Might out of his funk. With that, Toshinori joined into the fight. After another 3 minutes of the fight, Izuku used his skill, gravity manipulation, and then said, "Red." A red orb was formed, but AFO had used another attack too, with some kind of roots coming from his back. They produced red balls too, and when Izuku shot out his attack, AFO did the same. The explosion that came from it was something Deidara and Katsumi would have been proud of. It destroyed 50 m in radius around the duo, a massive crater in the center. Impressive, that is a powerful technique, but I don't th. He was cut off by All Might smashing a Detroit smash on the face of the villain, making another smaller crater inside the large crater, which was located in a general area of craters. The technique with the weather manipulation stopped whilst AFO was punched in the head. Then suddenly, the arm of AFO grew in size and punched All Might straight into a building, but Izuku sent a punch at AFO, who deflected, and the two went back into their dance. But there was a difference. AFO didn't have his Darth Vader living mask on. All Might was quickly healed up by one of the angels and joined into the battle with Izuku's second girlfriend. Izuku still couldn't understand that, but gotten stronger feelings towards Gabriel as time went on. The double smash that been intended for the back of AFO head from both Hero and Shadow caused AFO to go smashing into a building this time round. Taking a breather, Gabriel and Izuku then sent out their light and shadow attacks where AFO was laying down, but a shield of some kind protected the villain. Using this chance, AFO rushed towards shooting more beams from his root wings. Neither of the three were hit with that attack, but to everyone's surprise, Baru came in and smashed his clawed hands onto AFO's unprotected head, caving it a little more, making the man go unconscious. Honestly, if a villain who is high international level villain faced against 4 international levels, even though the shadows were lower ones whilst Izuku was a mid-level, he knew he couldn't defeat them all but do as much damage as one could. All Might went on a knee whilst Izuku got AFO in shadow binds infused with the skill Black Whip to make it sturdier. Ignoring the notification, he waited for the police to come. With the spectators, it was a surprise. At the beginning they thought they would die due to the weather attack. From multiple disasters in one area, a lot of people would have died if it wasn't for Izuku's shadows protecting them. The battle for them was intense. Whilst Izuku and AFO admittedly had a beautiful fight, it was still something to watch. Also, seeing All Might being punched through a building was a surprise. But they were happy at the end when Izuku captured the villain, whilst All Might rose his hand up in victory, whilst having some bloodstains on his roughed-up suit. 1A was all in their dorms. 1B was 2 invited, looking at the large TV in 1A common room. It was something to see. Izuku was literally in Canada some time ago and he traveled here to help All Might. There was a lot of worrying, one person cursing his name due to the angels all being falled, a lot of happiness and curiosity of what will happen next. They know that they will have to intensify their training to catch up to Izuku as much as they could. With the granddaughter of that man. My. What a strong man, also hot. She licked her lips. In all honesty, she didn't really care that her grandfather is going to jail, as she knew that at one point he will escape. But now she had a new interest. When her grandfather told her about this young man, she was interested, but now she wanted him. She had 3 quirks, 1 natural whilst 2 others were given to her grandfather. Now she was imagining her babies and how strong they will be. You will be mine soon, dear Izu. With Izuku, for some reason he had a cold shiver go up his spine at that moment but ignored it for the police that just arrived. He handed AFO to them with his specialized quirk-canceling cuffs. After putting him into an iron tube, reporters came to them. All Might joined Izuku looking over the car. Then Izuku remembered, shit, we could have asked him about Nana. All Might for the first time spoke. Fuck! The reporters came to them and asked them some questions. They could clearly see that Izuku's shadows are helping some of the people and clearing some debris. All Might, Monarch, do you have any comments on this? All Might sighed and spoke. We expected this fight from the beginning of the rescue of Hitoshi Shinso. Izuku had his eyes widen. He didn't really know why his shadow was fighting AFO with All Might, and now he knew. I was lucky to have one of Monarch's shadows with me, so we could have contacted Monarch as he was in Canada. Izuku nodded at that. Monarch, what are your plans now? One reporter asked. Izuku just replied, sleep. A lot of face faults came. Someone jumped and drop-kicked Izuku on the head. I told you not to be blunt. Izuku just smiled and hugged her, then kissed her, which she happily reciprocated while seeing her darling had a tick mark over her forehead. When Rumi saw that, a smirk appeared on her face. Another reporter then asked, All Might, what will you do now? I will be slowly retiring. I will allow the younger generation fill in whilst continue teaching the younger generations. This was a shock to all. One asked, how come All Might? Sighing, the heavy man then said, I was a hero for a long time. Even with Monarch healing me, I am still getting older. I had a life-threatening injury not too long ago, but Monarch here healed me up. Even still, my time is running dry, but with Monarch and my protege, the future of Japan is secure. Everyone gave All Might a look. I talked too much, didn't I? All Might thought. Some people felt betrayed by All Might. Everyone pretty much knew Izuku, and he was there for most of the fights that are in the top ranks and helps out, but Noon knows of his protege who didn't even help their master in defeating the now-known arch-nemesis. Izuku got away from the reporters who were hungry for information about All Might's protege who didn't help his master. Mirio was lucky that his master didn't say his name, otherwise there will be more backlash than support. A reason being is simple human stupidity. If there was someone who could have helped All Might other than the second national rank hero, would have been him. When Mirio heard All Might say that to the camera, he kinda wanted to punch All Might in the stomach. He could only use 35% of OFA. He was pushing his body every day to increase his control over One for All, but it was taxing to his body if he increased the percentage any higher. When he received that quirk, it was during spring break, just before the start of his 3rd year, and there was a lot of broken bones. OFA manifested as a golden aura around him. The higher he goes, the more visible the aura became. Like Izuku with his lightning, although at the beginning there was a lot of broken bones, he recovered somehow. He was lucky that All Might didn't mention his name, as he knew that the population will criticize him due to not helping at the Jeju Gate or Hosu incident. Now Izuku was at the bunny's apartment spooning Rumi, whilst Gabriel was the big spoon for Izuku. The system user didn't know why, but the angel always loved being the big spoon. It was a complicated relationship, but they were sure to make it work. Even if Rumi and Gabriel had a lot of arguments, the two started to behave like sisters. Before Izuku went to sleep, he checked out what he got for notifications. Apparently, defeating villains also gave him experience points. AFO and the Sludge High End gave him surprisingly another 6 levels. A new skill, Hand-to-Hand Expert LV.1 passive. And finally, from the Sludge High End, he received 5% for physical pain nullification. It was pretty useful. I will put the stat sheet at the end. Also, some skills I have left LV max due to waiting for another skill to max so they can join together. Next day, the morning was uneventful except for the girls hugging Izuku's arms, not allowing him to leave. All 3 ignored his teleportation skill. He talked to Sass and Kaki for some time whilst this was happening. The 2 Kwamis started to tease him, which Izuku replied with a tongue out. During breakfast, which was made up of golden carrots, some fish and rice with a light soup, they talked about the day ahead of them. Izuku spoke. Aizawa-sensei wants us back in the dorms by tomorrow, so I was thinking of having a date night. The 2 looked confused, with Rumi asking, with both of us or 2 separate dates? Us 3, if that is okay with you 2? The 2 females looked at each other and nodded. Izuku smiled lightly at that. Do you have anything planned for today, Bun Bun? She shook her head. This is my day off, actually. Good. Before we leave, I want you to wear something for hiking. This got a raised eyebrow from Rumi, but she liked hiking, so she would comply. 11 a.m. The girls were ready, and so was Izuku. With both girls holding Izuku's hand, he used the skill Shadow Exchange with the Shadow he left in Canada, who had orders of finding a place with no light pollution. They traveled to a midpoint of a mountain. Now Rumi understood why she needed hiking gear. "Why so dark, darling? And where are we?" Gabriel asked. Izuku smiled. "We are in Canada. The time difference is around 16 hours. We have around 2 hours to get on top of this mountain, and we can see the sunset." With that, the three started to walk up to the top. Gabriel just flew. Izuku could do the same, but doing physical exercise was relaxing for him. It took them less than 2 hours to reach the top, where a blanket and a basket were located. "We are here," Izuku said whilst wiping some sweat. He only had his fatigue go to 5. Rumi, on the other hand, fell on the blanket and rolled over to her back. "It was exhausting," Rumi muttered. Gabriel pipped in. "Wow, you seem tired. You must be weak," she said with a smirk at the end. A glare and some words were Rumi's response. "At least I didn't cheat." Before any of the girls would have an argument, Izuku stopped them and said, "Look, the sun is setting." With that, he sat down with Gabriel and Rumi both leaning on his shoulder, looking at the sun setting down. Sass and Kaki too watched the sunset in Izuku's hair. The mountains, with an occasional top filled with snow covered in luscious trees, with a lock starting from under the mountain going for some distance. After some time, Rumi's stomach began to grumble. Izuku chuckled at that, seeing the red-faced, fierce bunny rabbit. Getting the basket of food and drinks, they began to eat it and converse with each other. After the sun fully set, darkness started to come over them. Izuku made a campfire to keep them warm whilst looking at the sky and seeing the stars with no light polluting the view. "It looks beautiful," Rumi stated. Izuku and Gabriel nodded at that, with Izuku saying whilst looking at the moon, "The moon looks beautiful, isn't it?" Both girls looked at Izuku with some sort of blush. Sometimes the meaning in the Japanese language means, "I love you." The two girls just snuggled into Izuku's side, smiling. A shooting star was seen above them, with each of them wishing for something each. All of them thought of the same thing: "I wish to have more days like these." The times are starting to look worse for the world, with the gates starting to appear, and most likely the villain number will rise due to All Might slowly going into retirement. They just lied down for a couple of hours, having each other's warmth around them with the campfires too. Next day, Izuku was just walking towards his dorm. Once he entered, there was total silence. All of 1A was sitting in the hall, with Aizawa being there too. Morning. His sensei nodded to him whilst the other students kind of seemed downcast. "What happened and where is Tsuyu?" Aizawa just sighed. "You might have not heard, but Tsuyu Azui was a traitor for All for One." Izuku rose an eyebrow. "I kind of figured that out with Nizu some time ago." All of 1A looked at Izuku in surprise. Before anyone could say something, Izuku continued, "What happened to her?" "She is currently with the police being interrogated for her reasons," the sensei answered. Mina then asked the teacher, "What about evidence, sir?" With some of the students nodding. "I shouldn't be saying it, but as you were her classmates, I will tell you. Firstly, during your final summer exams, a video of Izuku's match against All Might and Maruko was recorded. As you knew, we told you not to bring your phones or record. Nizu saw a flash of a phone and saw it was Tsuyu recording. After the video of the phone was leaked out, Nizu made sure the angle of the camera was in the same position that Tsuyu was in. This may not say much, but it allowed Nizu to have an idea. Secondly, after the camp attack, we found a GPS chip in her bag. This could have been someone framing her. So one of the policemen with a truth quirk asked her, and she answered that she was a spy. He finished the explanation. Everyone was quiet. There were undeniable facts, and all bar Izuku saw Tsuyu being taken away from their dorms. Izuku, on the other hand, thought differently. This will make our guard go down, meaning there is a second spy somewhere in UA. Aizawa then walked up to Izuku and spoke. "Good to have you back from Korea and Canada properly." Izuku nodded and made Baru go into Aizawa's shadow, giving him Izuku's thoughts on the matter. "How is Hitoshi?" Tenya replied in a calmer tone of voice. "He is all right. Recovery girl checked him over, but he is fine physically. He will have meetings with Hound Dog for some time though." Izuku nodded to that. "Nerd. Good to have you back," Katsumi said whilst coming over to him and hugging him. "Thanks, Kaken." He hugged her back. Eventually, all of 1A joined in the hug. They may have not known each other for long, but everyone was precious to them. Even Izuku warmed up to everyone properly. With Aizawa, he entered the office with Nizu. When they wanted to start talking, Baru came out of Izuku's shadow. "You must be Baru," Nizu's excited tone asked. Baru just nodded and spoke. "My beautiful and magnificent liege told his humble servant, I Baru, to inform you of something." Both Nizu and Shota sweat dropped at that, but it was fascinating seeing a shadow soldier talk. "My liege spoke that this two-person may be a distraction, for you lowly humans to loosen your guard." Aizawa's eye twitched being called lowly human, but Nizu had a glint in his eye. "Interesting, why is that?" Nizu asked, interesting in this fascinating shadow. "Another worthless spy may be in UA. My liege doesn't really have any evidence of who this lowly being is, but rest assured, rat and human. The army and I will find who it may be." With that, Baru disappeared, going to his liege. "That is a weird shadow," Aizawa spoke in an even tone of voice. Nizu nodded. "Baru is interesting. I won't lie, but he is funny." With that, chuckling was heard from the office. It was a couple of days after the revelation that Tsuyu was the spy. Luckily, the media didn't know it, so it was all under wraps. During those 4 days, the class started to train together more often. The only person who was allowed to leave was UA was Izuku from their class. A reason being was the gates. After the Jeju Gate, more gates started to appear around Japan and some countries. He gave Nizu the gate readers for him to send out for other hero commissions around the world. There were reports of multiple places about monsters breaking out of a gate from human negligence. The human death toll gone up due to once again stupidity. Humans can be curious but stupid at the same time. The Hurios of Japan were doing alright with dealing with the gates. Izuku mostly sent out his shadows to complete the gates and for them to only be rank and upwards monster corpses. He thought about C-rank boss monsters, but he needed stronger shadows from now on. Due to Izuku only rising up 1 level during this time, he decided to leave them in his inventory until his shadow limit properly increases. His shadows and himself actually dealt with 21 E rank gates, 11 D rank gates, 4 C rank and 1 B rank. The B rank that his shadows completed was an animal-based gate. The animals inside metal armor and claws made up of metal. It was funny knowing only Baru completed that gate and ate a lot of them, gaining 5 levels just by eating some of his opponents. Baru's skill of gluttony was one of the most useful skills in Izuku's honesty. If Baru ate a part of his opponent, he will receive the sum quirks to his arsenal. The most powerful of the ants gained a couple of useful boons, such as physical damage reduction from the slime high end, which Izuku actually made a shadow recently, increased speed from the cheetahs in the B rank gate, and thicker skin from an elephant type of monster. Baru is the fastest growing shadow in his army. Additionally to completing some gates that was on constant news, he had a lot of shadows searching for Nana. For some reason that Izuku cannot explain, his stomach twisted in a bad way, like when he will finally find her he won't like it. This day he sent out one of his shadows to go on top of Mount Fuji so he can teleport there without the use of Kaki. He started to walk towards Nizu's office saying he will be completing a gate when he was stopped by 3 girls. "Oh hey girls," he said with a smile on his face. "Nerd, you going to a gate?" Katsumi asked. Izuku tilted his head but nodded. Heian asked, "Can we go to?" With Shoko nodding as well. He sighed and told them, "I am going to an S-rank gate." The 3 girls had their eyes widen at that fact. "We are going with you," Katsumi demanded, coming close to his face. She had to go on her tiptoes to even be close to his face at that point. At that point, Izuku had a neutral face on him. Then a challenging smirk appeared on Izuku's face whilst looking at Katsumi's face. Then Izuku felt someone rushing towards them. Looking to the right, a blue blur appeared and crashed into him, bear hugging him. Izuku smiled and patted the person's hair. "Hey Nijire, long time no see," she pouted whilst looking at Izuku. "We didn't see each other during summer." Shoko, Katsumi and Heian just looked flabbergasted whilst looking at the duo. "Anyways, I need to go to Nizu. I found a gate and will complete it. Can I go with you again?" Nijire asked. With the 3 classmates of Izuku had one thought again. "You are a big 3 member, so you ask me." He looked at Katsumi, Shoko and Heian. "We can go tomorrow. It will be an A-rank gate, so it will be a challenge for you without a big chance of you dying." They nodded reluctantly. They did wanted to go with him and spend some time with him. During this summer, they thought that they would spend more time with Izuku and ask him out, as they knew that he won't ask them out as he is dating Maruko. But after discovering about Gabriel, their hopes went up hearing about that. They gave Izuku a hug whilst 2 with actual provisional hero licenses went to Nizu. 30 minutes later, MT Fuji. Nizu gave them permission easily enough as they still have some time before UA starts again. In 2 days he will need to attend as they will be doing super moves, but he also informed Izuku that Star and Stripe asked when will he be ready for their part-time internship. When Rumi heard about this, a jealous look came over her, but Izuku promised that he will be in USA as much as he will be working under her for internships, which made he a little happier. Nijire was just shocked. The amount of questions that she asked nearly caused Nizu to pass out from information overload. Even with his increased intelligence, sometimes the bubbly woman was too much for him even. It was also funny seeing her reaction when Izuku told her he is 17 now, as his birthday was during the summer holidays. Shock, then surprise, then late birthday wishes whilst the two laughed on top of the cold Mount Fuji. As you know, I have keys for some gates. This is one of the two I have planned on going in this summer. A curious eyebrow was risen. Will it be similar to the scary gate that we've been in? Will it have scary monsters? Nijire asked. Apparently this gate is called Akatsuki, whatever that is, and truthfully I don't know about the monsters. Izuku answered her. She just nodded and Izuku got the key out of his inventory. Item: Akatsuki Gate Key. Item Class: S-Type. Key Collection: 1/ Key to a Akatsuki Gate. Location: top of Mount Fuji. With that, a blue gate appeared and the both jumped into it. You have entered a gate. What greeted the two was not what they expected. It was a clear night with stars shining like what Izuku saw in Canada. But there was a difference. The moon was red. All around them were cliffs with a body of water circling the duo. They were standing under some kind of old Japanese-style hut with a statue in the middle. It was a wooden statue, but you could see the detail under some moss and vegetation surrounding it. A woman with long hair. She had 2 horns coming from her head and what seems to be a third eye on her forehead. There was something off about her that both noticed. A smirk was etched on her face. Alarm. Quest: Defeat the Akatsuki. Part 1 Quest of the Key Collection. Akatsuki was originally a group of 11th-class missing ninjas from a universe far away. Defeat the 11 to continue with your collection rewards. Reward 1. Gate Key 2/. Reward 2. Random skill from the opponent's reward 3. Killed 0/11. Nijire. This got her attention. We have 11 opponents that we have to defeat. I can feel them, but I cannot even pinpoint them. She gulped, and the second after she gulped, the face on the statue widened her smirk. With Star and Stripe, I cannot wait. 1 more week and Izuku will be coming to USA. Then she halted. Izuku is coming to USA. Shit. I need to tell my bros. The duo kept in contact after Island, but when she officially sent in the forms for Izuku's part-time internship teacher, she kind of forgot to tell her bros about it. Her bros are the ones who usually deal with the aircraft and are all older than her. When she employed them, she asked for experience than quirk type. All of them were glad about it and they all treated her as a little sister. Now she was stressing out. New law: the air in front of myself will have no resistance whilst I travel. With that, she sped off to her agency, forgetting that she had a phone that she could have called them. With the mysterious granddaughter of AFO, she was excited. She was able to be transferred from Shiketsu High to UA. She didn't go to UA from the start because her grandfather asked her that the opportunity is not right. Even though she never properly followed in the footsteps of her grandfather, she didn't care about what he was doing and the League of Villains project that he had going on. I will see you soon, Izu. She then kissed a photo off him and placed it in her drawer as her friend Cammy came into her room. Yo girl, I heard what happened. Congrats yo. Cammy hugged her friend, which she reciprocated. I also heard the hottie that you've been crushing on is there. A teasing smirk appeared on her face. The granddaughter of one of the most powerful villains backed up with her hands covering her beautiful face that had a blush on it. What? What do you mean? She stuttered out. Don't lie to me, girl. You've been hot and bothered by that haughty monarch. Cammy was then kicked out of the room by a kick to her stomach. Ah, sorry. She stammered out whilst closing the door. Cammy just shook her head and laughed it off. The granddaughter of AFO slid down her door. I cannot act like this when I meet him. She had blonde hair with light blue/grayish eyes, with the height of 5 feet 8 inches. She was in her casual wear as she finished her class some time ago. Since she was little, she always wanted to be a hero, but had a small problem: obsessions. If she wanted something, she will get it no matter how much sweat, tears, and blood she produced. Her first obsession was becoming a hero to change the society and to help those people who cannot protect themselves or are shunned. Her second obsession was gardening. At home, she had a garden with healing herbs and had a hidden plant area that produced poisons and toxins. For most of the time, she didn't have an obsession, but now she had found someone who she was interested in, Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as Shadow Monarch. At the beginning, he was a normal student who was really strong. Then he got more and more famous with Maruko and Stain capture. Later on was him capturing a lot of villains of the streets, then Island. Then it was finally Jeju Island and Kamino. He was strong, hot, powerful, and apparently nice. She thought that she may have a chance at the beginning, but now she will get him. She had a powerful quirk. With her original quirk is amplification of oneself by 120%. With that on its own can make her throw a car like it was nothing. But with her grandfather giving her a physical boost quirk and bodily quirk canceller that doesn't allow her to be brainwashed or have Tsukachi able to see if she lied or not. The physical boost was her registered quirk. But there was something that AFO didn't expect her to do with her own original quirk. It was to use it to amplify the bodily quirk canceller. What it does is to make the person not be able to use their quirk for 5 minutes if it's emission or transformation, and for mutant was to not have their bodies move for 2 minutes. But with the strength that is continuously growing and her canceling ability, she is debatably one of the strongest students in Japan. With Izuku and Nijire seeing the smirk widen on the statue, the both got ready just in case whatever may happen, and the shit started. A massive water attack was sent from all sides with what seemed as sharks floating in between them. Pushing Nijire behind himself, Izuku used the skill, gravity manipulation, and pushed the water away. But the next thing was 100 puppets with some white human look-alike. Widening their eyes, Nijire started blasting 20% blasts whilst Izuku used his skill, fire manipulation, and threw a massive blast of fire in front of them, destroying some of the fire, but all of it was sucked into one body. Preta Path body. Then from behind that body, a blue man came out with a shorter figure with red eyes that have 3 commas through it. Kisame Tylus Tailed Beast. Itachi Clan Slayer, with the blue man going straight for Izuku whilst Itachi went for Nijire, trying to split them apart. Izuku summoned his dagger and gave it to Nijire whilst also saying, "Come forth." The two not expecting this, they jumped back where Izuku could see other members, but also some bodies that are connected to one member. Died Era the Mad Bomber, Haiden the Jashinist, Kakuzu the Immortal, Conan Angel of Death, Orochimaru of the legendary Sannin, Sasori of the Red Sands, Tobi the Masked Uchiha, Zetsu Wicked Tongue, Deva Path Body, Azura Path Body, Human Path Body, Animal Path Body, Naraka Path Body, Pain. Izuku and Nijire just gulped seeing this. The power and killing intent coming from all of them was something to fear. He even thought that All Might wouldn't be able to defeat them, a normal Com S rank gate. And this is what we get. Nijire just nodded silently. With all 11 members up on a cliff with the 6 so-called bodies of the Pain guy, Izuku and Nijire will have to face 17 members at once with the lower amount of shadows. Izuku only has Baru and Mikao. He left Gabriel to be at the dorms just in case or help with gates. One shadow may be not present, but the strongest shadow would probably be useful at this moment. Orochimaru sent out a wave of fire that was amplified with Itachi's Amaterasu. The black flames was further amplified with Pain's wave of wind. Fisher and all water using shadows tried their best canceling the fire attack to no use. Izuku took Nijire and jumped back. The shadows, seeing that their liege will only have his MP decreased if the fire attacked, they jumped away except some lower level shadows who turned into shadows as they were hit. With that attack, Kisame, Orochimaru, Haiden and some puppets from Sasori were sent out to kill the 2 humans. The shadows came up and started fighting with all of the Akatsuki members whilst Izuku was dealing with Kisame and Nijire with the puppet controlled by Sasori. It was chaos. When the blue fishman jumped towards Izuku with the sword made of gills on show, the greenette pulled out his spear and the two clashed. Izuku could feel the light pull of energy being sucked out of himself into the sword. Widening his eyes, he jumped back. He used the skill, gravity manipulation, to pull Kisame towards his spear. The monster was impaled, but when Izuku thought he died, the body turned into water. Izuku saw the man do a couple of hand movements. A smirk appeared on that man's face when multiple water sharks jumped out of the water onto the student. Using the skill, Sprint, he rushed behind the man who was in shock and slashed his back with his spear. Izuku felt that some energy was coming from the sword into the man, so he theorized that the way to beat Kisame was to get the sword away from him for the time being. When he was about to touch the sword, paper shurikens hit the location where he would have been at. Seeing it was the Conan lady, the only female who isn't a clone, hovering above the duo with no concern about the other shadows surrounding her. Sometimes Nijire cursed her curiosity. She did want to become stronger, who didn't, but this was a little too much for her. She had to use 100% attacks, but when the puppet was destroyed, another came into its place. She thought that there must be a master who controls the puppets. She had to dodge silver sand by rolling to the side and slashed a white being in two. Apparently those were some clones, but are pretty weak, possibly to tire someone out. Those opponents she was fighting now looked human. Too human for her taste. But what can she do? Those were monsters anyways. Using her dagger, she slashed at one of the puppets whilst dodging some sort of needles that have a colored liquid coated on them. She looked over at Izuku and didn't like what she saw. As Izuku saw that Conan was above him, two bodies of pain appeared, the animal and the Azura path. He cursed his curiosity as just from the animal path a couple of animals were summoned with the weird purple rippled eyes. A multi-headed dog, a centipede and a rhino. The three summons rushed towards Izuku or any of the teen's larger shadows. The rhino was having a pushing competition with Fluffy whilst the dog was fighting Slimy. The centipede tried rushing Izuku, but with the skill, gravity manipulation, he pushed the shadow away, knocking some white Zetsu and a bomb apparently. Igris was fighting Haydn and he was getting pissed. Cutting the head of didn't work, smashing the body didn't work, exploding the body with his Dominator's Talk 2 didn't work. Heck, at one point before Fluffy was fighting the rhino, the tall bear even sat on the man. Baru, who was dealing with Zetsu, saw the predicament that his fellow captain faced and came to help. Baru's fight against Zetsu was interesting but boring. The Zetsu could produce white clones which were around mid-kink strength but had some wood attacks too. The trickiest bit was finding him. Zetsu could move faster than his liege but underground. Ignoring the pest, the shadows with Izuku and Nijire needed to actually kill an Akatsuki member off. Using all of his speed, he rushed at Haydn and bitten of his head and swallowing it. It may be gruesome for others, but this was the only way to beat this guy, though he was probably the weakest out of the 11. Haydn the Jashinist has been defeated. When Izuku saw this, a small smirk appeared on his face. The Deva path that he was battling against whilst trying to get the other three pests away was an annoyance. The weapons that this body produced was something that he would have been interested in before his coma, but now he wanted to kill the Azura path. He did lose some health from a bullet hitting his shoulder, but most of the damage was reduced thanks by his armor. Using a kick to get the man away whilst throwing his spear with skill. Spear throw at Conan, who dissolved into thousands of papers. Daidara was being dealt with Mikao. The bombs was partially cancelled by one of the three faces on Mikao's head. It was similar to Kakuzu actually. The potion reduced the explosions, and that is a reason why Daidara lost an arm already. Itachi jumped in to help after he defeated Dracula, or so he thought, when the Grand Elder Vampire jumped into the battle causing a 2v2 to occur. What Itachi didn't think was that Dracula would get out of his Tsukuyomi that quickly. Kakuzu was being dealt with most of the other shadows who are not dealing with the puppets or white Zetsu clones. One of the reasons was him having 4 black threaded shadows that had a heart in each. Each of the 5 could use a certain element, and their teamwork was amazing. The amount of mana Izuku lost in this battle was something to say. But Netherless, a seductive vampire, defeated the Wind Heart, but a sneaky tactic then shattering it. Pissed of Kakuzu a little, but he carried on. But when the Earth Heart was destroyed, some anger escaped him. The Earth body was meant to be the strongest in defense, but it was destroyed by Uriel sending a blast of light in a high concentration penetrating through the defense, killing the heart. Orochimaru and Tobi were dealing with Baruka and Raphael. The two had surprisingly good teamwork in using the opponent's weaknesses against them. When one of the shadows would attack, one of the foes would dodge, but the other would use their deceptive nature to make a blow on a shadow. Human Path body was defeated 1-6. Defeat all 6 bodies to defeat Pain. It was Beast with the help of 2 elder vampires. It was probably the weakest body. Neither of the 3 saw what it could do, but its hand-to-hand combat was something else. It took roughly 2 minutes to kill of the body. But with that, the 3 joined into other fights, with Beast joining the fight against Orochimaru and Tobi. Izuku saw that Pain was the only one not fighting. He thought that he was the boss of this gate, but something didn't make sense to him. He wasn't the strongest, Tobi was. So why was Tobi playing with Beast, Baruka, and Raphael? He sent out a kick to Kisame whilst he shot a fire wave at Conan. What he got in return was a lot of papers coming to him with a symbol. It only took a second to realize what that was. He used skill. Sprint to get away as an explosion just occurred that covered the part of the area in dust and debris. The way he figured out what they was because he felt an energy signature on them. Also, the kanji that was written was old-style Japanese. Sending multiple black whips, he caught Samahata with Kisame. He threw Kisame towards Daidara whilst getting hold of the sword. He started to counter-attack the Azura path. Samahata shows as their owner. They feed of the power of one individual. be it Izuku's mana or Kisame's chakra. So seeing that the sword didn't take Izuku's hand of was something for Kisame to see. When Izuku and Azura clashed, more debris fell around them. The animal path summoned a panda which had the same eyes as the other summons. It was due to the rhino finally being dispatched by Fluffy and some of the other shadows. Izuku saw the predicament and formed blue on his finger and shot it out towards the panda. It hit Predapath's barrier which swallowed the attack. Widening his eyes at that, Izuku jumped upwards, surprising Konan. He slashed downwards with Samahata. When the Angel of Death tried to make herself become paper, the sword cut some of the skin off. Nijire used the dagger that Izuku gave her and slashed one of the white Zetsu, but she was suddenly pushed backwards. She looked and saw the Devapath body. Gulping slightly, she sent out a 60% energy wave at the body, but it was evaded like it was nothing. Slightly cursing, Nijire started to fly in the air to get a favorable position but was shocked when the Devapath did the same thing. Multiple ant soldiers came rushing at that path but was sent back onto the cliff like nothing. Sending out multiple 10% beams at the Devapath, she started to pant. One of the beams hit the body but was surprisingly healed by one of the other paths, the Naraka path. That path healed up the Devapath like nothing happened. A massive explosion occurred near Nijire. It was Deidara who created one of his massive explosive clay structures. Mikao was annoyed. The blonde female-looking guy didn't have many opportunities of getting closer and the wind and bullets did nothing to him. The only thing that works was the poison produced by the high end, but that explosion took out half of the shadow. It only took 10 seconds to get back into the original position, but it was too late as Deidara escaped the reaches of Mikao. Looking around, the shadow saw that Nijire was in trouble and went to help her with the two bodies and also the puppet that can control the silver sand. The magicians shot multiple fireballs at the approaching white Zetsu clones. Then one of them started using the location spell looking for the main body of Zetsu. Fisher was just behind them waiting for their help locating the body. When they located it in the water, Fisher seemed to have a smirk on its face. Using the high control of water, the shadow made it condense around Zetsu and bring it to the surface where it was later on crushed by the pressure of the water. Zetsu Wicked Tongue has been defeated. They knew that Zetsu may be weak, but the cloning technique was one of the worst things. They may not feel tiredness, but they need to help their beloved liege and his friend as they can get tired. With the original Zetsu being defeated, all of the white Zetsu clones dissolved into the ground. This allowed the shadows to help defeat the rest of the Akatsuki and the puppets. Now the magicians were looking for the puppet master. Sasori of the Red Sands was using all of his power to control 30 puppets and the third Kazekage, using his precise control over his chakra. He sent out more strings making 69 puppets rise up. He was using a technique that can control 100 puppets at this current moment, but was shocked when Aleshi smashed into his body, making his original modified body fly away. Orochimaru saw that and broke off from Tobi, who understood what he was doing. Tobi in the meantime said, "I am a good boy." Baruka and Raphael seemed to growl at that. The Seraph then sent out a light whip but it went through Tobi. The two needed a method of getting Tobi under them. As of now, the man was playing with the two shadows. The Sannin then slashed his Kusanagi blade downwards, cutting of the Leshi's hand while sending snakes out of his hand towards Fisher. A gothic vampire tried going from behind him, but the Kusanagi expanded its length, cutting the shadow in two. The chicken cottage shadow then pierced Orochimaru as he underestimated the building shadow. Expecting a pained frown, all they received was a smirk. Then a new body was burped out from Orochimaru. The shadows had their eyes widen at this. Fluffy was the biggest in the army of his liege, but now dealing with the rhino and the panda, who were both smaller but hit hard, was a pain. They caught the centipede and used it as a whip from its mouth. Even though his intelligence was low, he understood that the body of the animal path needed to be destroyed for those summons to leave. The multi-headed dog was actually facing the scorpions. The number of dog heads risen up to 4, but the movements of the summon was getting slower and slower due to the toxins in its system. The Deathstalker scorpions have the second most powerful toxins in them after Mikao in the army of their master, and it showed. The ogre boss who was riding on the Siberian bison was smashing its club, destroying some puppets. But with the speed the bison managed to create and the smirk on the ogre, they charged at the dog, with the ogre making a hole in the center of its body. Izuku was shooting his shadow towards Konan whilst dodging the Azura path. The animal path was at the back with the Preda path guarding it. Occasionally, one of the Alkanost would do a suicide attack trying to distract the Preda path, whilst another shadow would try to destroy the animal path. Itachi had an idea. Using his kunai and shurikens, he threw them in a certain pattern, making the strings on the end join together. He left Deidara alone as he knew a massive explosion will occur. The one in the center was actually Slimy. The slime Nomu came to deal with Itachi as he couldn't defeat his opponent, so he swapped places. That is also another reason why Itachi is fighting the Nomu. Slimy was caught in the middle, and then Itachi used his fire chakra to start burning the Nomu. To the Uchiha's surprise, the Nomu went through the strings whilst sending an elongated hand with slime capturing Itachi. Thinking quickly, he used Amaterasu to make the shadow into goop. When that was happening, he used his crow Shunshin. Slimy did indeed went into his smoke form, but reformed quickly, catching Itachi off guard and got him covered in his slime. With this action, the Clan Slayer was no more. Itachi Clan Slayer was defeated. With that being said, Slimy went to help Nijire. The girl was panting. After being treated like a throwing toy with the Deva's Path power, she spat out a small glob of blood. Damn it! Why am I weak? Nijire then looked over Izuku and saw that he was being pushed back by the Azura Path. She saw that all of his attacks were absorbed by the Preta Path, and now Izuku had to deal with Kisame and Konan. They were lucky that 4 died, but they still have a lot to go through. Mikao and Slimy were both in front of her whilst an angel came down to help heal Nijire. Smiling slightly, she stood up and told the shadows around her. The Deva Path has gravity control, and the other one can heal, but I swear is not all. All around her the shadows nodded and rushed in. Mikao went from above while Slimy went from the right. A couple of shadows went in a different direction as they needed to defeat as many of the Akatsuki members as possible. Mikao was pushed back, while Slimy got close as the Deva Path couldn't push them back yet. Using this opportunity, the slime got around the Deva Path and started to crush the body until the 5 seconds run out, pushing the slime back into a wall. Suddenly, the King of Hell was summoned by the Naraka Path, crushing some of the shadows. The king tried to grab onto a shadow, but they didn't allow it. Using this opportunity, Nijire shot a 100% energy beam at the Naraka Path, destroying it. She smirked at that. Naraka Path body was defeated 2 out of 6. Defeat all 6 bodies to defeat pain. Izuku saw that 1/3 of all bodies of pain were defeated. Using this as motivation, he threw his spear into Kazami and used his sword to shave of his face. But as fate likes to mess with people, Deidara rushed in with his clay bombs, bombing Izuku's location. Dracula, who was of the shadows dealing with the Mad Bomber, rushed in but went towards the other Akatsuki members like other shadows did. Orochimaru was having a hard time dealing with his opponents. The battle was a mess. With the change of opponents, he now has to deal with Baru. The ant rushed in, cutting the body in half, but it turned out to be a clone made of rock. The man sent out multiple larger snakes from his arms, but Baru ate some whilst killing the others. What he got from the Jashinist was a more resilient body and a higher regeneration factor. From the snakes, a smoother skin that is fractionally harder to pierce. Rushing in, he tried to slash with his claws but got blocked by the Kusanagi. 2 of the virtues came from behind Orochimaru and sent out their attacks made from lightning. It pierced the snake Sannin, but once again a new body was thrown out from his mouth. The fight between Izuku and Kisame ended after he shaved off the face of the tileless-tailed beast. A weakness of the blue man was that he was too reliant on his sword. So after taking the sword and tiring the man a bit, he used the moment to stab his spear through his mouth and upwards, destroying his brain before he could use a water attack. With that, the body slumped downwards. Kisame, tileless-tailed beast, was defeated. He had to dodge some paper and metal projectiles coming from the Azura Path and Konan, but otherwise pulled the spear out of Kisame and threw it at the animal path. The Preta Path tried its hardest to stop the spear, but as Izuku reinforced the skill, spear throw with skill, fire manipulation, but on the side added the skill, bloodlust, the Preta Path faltered. With that small mistake, the spear went through the defense into the head of the animal path, smashing its body to bits as it hit the cliff behind. Animal path body was defeated 3 out of 6. Defeat all 6 bodies to defeat pain. All of the summons that was on the field disappeared, freeing 50% of the shadows, including Fluffy, the angels, and the ogre/bison duo. With that, the Akatsuki was on the losing side of the battle, right? With the fast defeat of more and more of their members. Sasori and Orochimaru was finally separate as Baru didn't like having its prey escape. The puppeteer was now facing Fisher, and behind the fishman was Uriel, ready to shoot their light magic. The Kazekage puppet was destroyed. All his puppets were too destroyed. He didn't see a way to win. But netherless, he started shooting poisonous weapons at the shadows, but was blocked by Uriel's light barrier. With that, Fisher shot multiple condensed balls of water at the human puppet. Cracking and splinering, until the heart of Sasori was no more. Sasori of the Red Sands was defeated. Now Uriel went off to help defeat Tobi whilst Fisher went to try help defeat Kakuzu. Talking about the immortal, he wasn't immortal but had 5 lives with his 5 hearts. 2 of the hearts was already destroyed, and now the rest of the hearts were being threatened as more shadows came towards Kakuzu. The Ice Elves shot their ice-enhanced arrows at the black string mess that had the lightning heart whilst that body sent out lightning out, taking a few lower-level shadows out. But from the ice, the body slowed down, allowing Tsadkiel to slash it down, killing the 3rd heart of Kakuzu. The only hearts left were the fire and the water ones, the original and the body. Wanting to help their beloved liege, Fluffy came flying towards them from a gravity attack from the Deva body, crushing the fire heart, aka the additional heart, leaving only Kakuzu trying to use his stringed powers. The defense of the body was impressive but nothing that Tsadkiel couldn't deal with, and like that, Kakuzu was no more from a diagonal slash from Tsadkiel. Kakuzu the Immortal has been defeated. 6 out of the 11 Akatsuki was no more, with 3 of the 6 paths 2 being defeated. Now the shadows with the 2 humans had 8 opponents from the 17 they had at the beginning. Nijire was getting her hopes up. With the concentration of the 8 Akatsuki villains, the shadows gone to help to defeat Tobi. Some tried pain but they were destroyed or helped Nijire. Izuku used the same strategy as to defeat the animal path by throwing his spear downwards as he was in the air fighting Conan. The spear got through the moving defense as the Preta path was rushing towards the Deva path. But once again the spear broke through the defense and killed off the Preta body. Preta path body has been defeated 4 out of 6. Defeat all 6 bodies to defeat pain. Now only Deva and Azura path were left. Igris used this opportunity and rushed from Daidara, who still was dealing with Mikao, and went towards Azura. The body expected something like this and a sword battle occurred, but with the use of Dominator's touch from Igris, some of the body was destroyed, leaving an opportunity for an angel to fly down and bombard Azura with light projectiles. Finally, to get the body out of its pain, Igris slashed its head of. Azura path body has been defeated 5 out of 6. Defeat all 6 bodies to defeat pain. Conan was flying like mad. She had to dodge the black whips and the fire attacks sent by Izuku. She saw the Daidara was somehow managing to go on equal ground with the strongest shadow in Izuku's army. But she didn't realize that Fluffy stood up and smashed her where the original Pain's body was. Izuku saw that and went towards Orochimaru. Nijire was shooting her beams at the final Deva path. She saw that there must be a 5-second delay per attack, which she tried using for her advantage, but still didn't work. When she was being pulled in, she dug her dagger that Izuku gave her on the ground and pushed up to 40% of energy waves through her feet so she wouldn't be coming close to the Deva path. Nijire also had to dodge the black rods that did cause some cuts to her body. She saw it was the only path body left, so using all of her might, and probably the knowledge that a 10-winged angel is behind her, she shouted, 120% Nijire wave. With that, she fell back to be healed by the angel whilst the wave was too big to dodge. It was shot during the 5-second gap, and with the Deva path not being able to dodge, it was destroyed. Deva path body has been defeated 6 out of 6. Pain can be defeated now. Daidara was on his last leg, literally. Mikao cut his left leg off. The blonde revealed his shirt, showing a mouth in his chest. Feeding it some clay, he thought C0 with that a massive explosion. The explosion looked like a Happy Patrick with a nightcap from SpongeBob. Dracula and all of the angels around the explosion felt the buildup of energy, so they put up their strongest barriers to protect their liege and his friend. It was something that was useful to block the C0 bomb. Daidara, the Mad Bomber, has been defeated. Pain, Orochimaru, Conan, and Tobi, that was all that was left. Nijire just started to wake up from her healing, whilst Izuku drank a fatigue reduction and a mana replenishing potion. All of Izuku's shadows bar Gabriel, who was in the human world, surrounded the 4 individuals, all looking menacing. Then there was the ogre on the bison's back. Izuku thought that the 2 made a bond with each other. They were treated the same, but everyone knew that they were some of the weakest shadows there are. Izuku looked around and saw the damage done by their fighting. The place that was most probably a place of worship was a war zone. But he noticed something which allowed a smirk to appear on his face. Arise! He knew that Pain and Tobi were the strongest out of the 4 remaining Akatsuki, and having some more to help would be a boost, as we saw that Tobi was just messing around before. With that, multiple shadows came up. The white Zetsu clones and the bodies of Pain were the only ones not able to be summoned back, as they were created, though Izuku hoped that he could get Pain as a shadow. Finally, Izuku chose their first name, like Sasori of the Red Sands was only Sasori. There was a positive: the skills of the shadows were the same and had the same equipment as they did from the beginning of the battle. This meant that he didn't need to give Samehada to Kisame or get all of the puppets for Sasori, as they will be rebuilt by his mana, as shown with the third Kazakage standing behind Sasori. Kisame LV.1 Captain, Itachi LV.1 Captain, Dyed Era LV.30 Elite Knight, Haiden LV.25 Elite Knight, Kakuzu LV.30 Elite Knight, Sasori LV.30 Elite Knight, Zetsu LV.25 Elite Knight. Kisame grew in size and had some more shark features. Dark blue shadow skin with a black shadow armor around his body, but had red shadow clouds. He carried the shadow version of Samehada, which was all dark blue. Itachi had a lighter shade of skin, but his eyes were red, showing his Sharingan. More specifically, the Manjiko Sharingan spinning. He too wore the black shadow armor with the red shadow clouds. Dyed Era had yellow shadow hair with a light blue skin tone. The main difference was that both of his additional mouths were shown to the public eye. He also has the armor of the red clouds. Haiden didn't change much, but he was quieter. His silver shadow hair and light blue skin with the three-bladed red shadow scythe. Kakuzu was different to his original body. He has 5 masked faces on his body, 1 on his head and the 4 on his chest. They all had an element written on top of the masked faces. His size increased similar to Kisame, but had green shadow eyes. Sasori was in a shadowy version of his puppet with red shadowed eyes. His puppets were all floating behind him menacingly, awaiting the call of his master. Finally, Zetsu, a black shadow side with the other being light blue. The fly trap was made up of green shadow. The green shadow eyes were the only facial feature he had. The addition of the 7 new shadows of high ranks was something he was happy about. Nijire will be staying out and possibly helping with support attacks, whilst Izuku and his shadows were going to fight the group. Having 4 opponents go against over 500 shadows was something to say. Izuku wouldn't say it out loud, but he respected strong people, and the 4 are strong. Itachi, Baru, and Slimy were the leading group against Orochimaru. The slithery snake had to use all of his tricks in the books to dodge and counter the 3 captain-grade shadows. Fireballs to snake summons were used but quickly dispatched. Itachi didn't have to worry about eye damage from his Manjiko Sharingan, so a Susanoo was produced, and with the special ability with the Yata mirror sealing Orochimaru pretty quickly. He did leave a piece of Orochimaru for his liege. A small smile came on the clan's killer's face. Orochimaru had been defeated, killed. August 11th, Dracula, Mikao, Dyed Era were dealing with the only female in the group, Conan. Of course, other shadows helped like Raphael, but they were all in the sky one way or the other. The backwards and forwards of their attacks was something to see. Not every day you see Mikao having a run for his money. The paper attacks sadly had a weakness to a stronger repelling force such as Mikao's wind, whilst Dyed Era bombarded her with his flying bombs. Then she had to dodge multiple of Eastern European bird women and angels trying to kill her. Pain had something that was different from the other bodies of his. In the original world of Naruto, he would have been all skin and bone with multiple black rods implanted on him. The visual difference was that he wasn't skin and bone but had muscle. His red hair parted for the view of the original Rinnegan and had a similar physique to the Deva body. Power was what was different. He sent out the 6 bodies to test the abelites of the 2 and to weaken them both. Additionally, he was slowly gaining knowledge how they fought and their patterns. Now he can utilize all of the powers granted to him by the eyes that the Rikido Sennin had. Toby, on the other hand, was waving his hands, then began being serious. Nijire's sweat dropped whilst looking at him. Baruka, who was there for a rematch with Fisher and the rest of the Akatsuki. She was there for support as she was too tired to fight properly. Nijire was usually the one with the abnormal stamina reserves from her quirk, as a side ability was a higher stamina storage. But the previous battle and shooting the Deva path caused her to use up some mental energy which could only be replenished by sleep. Shooting a couple of 10% rays at the masked man, all of the attacks went through like it was nothing. This frustrated her to no end, as this was similar to Mirio's ability. Inside of Nijire's mind with some history, Nijire, as most of the UA knew her, was part of the Big 3, meaning high A rank to low S rank heroes in training. When they would graduate then, the 3 of them would most certainly become top 10 in a couple of years. That wasn't her speaking about it, but the people around them, from Ryukyu to Nizu to even Recovery Girl. There was one problem: at the end of their 2nd year, the 3, meaning her, Tamaki, and Mirio, all were around the same level. During their break, spring break, Mirio exploded out of the range of her and Tamaki. Then Tamaki went up in power too. She wasn't jealous, but sometimes wondered if she was enough. Would she be forgotten again? Would the 2 leave her? As the months went on, she realized that the 3 were not as close as they used to be. Then one evening, when she went to the room of Mirio to ask him and Tamaki to train, she overheard a conversation. She around the same time as the USJ. So you have one for all. So what? Tamaki asked the other occupant in the room. Yeah, All Might gave me the quirk as he believed me to be worthy as his successor. Mirio replied to him. Nijire was shocked, so that why there was a golden aura around Mirio sometimes. Are you going to tell Nijire? Tamaki asked him. Nijire didn't see it, but Mirio frowned at that. I won't. I promised All Might that I won't say that I have OFA to anyone except you, Tamaki. At that moment, Nijire walked away with a downcast expression. She was lucky that she left there, and then, if she stayed, she would have heard the next few words. And she would spill it if I know her. Tamaki just shook his head at the stupidity of his best friend. After that, she concentrated working to get stronger, gain more stamina and experience. Ryukyu even said that she was probably the most well-known out of the big three in Japan, which some happiness returned to. She didn't let the OFA talk bother her and continued on her way. Then she saw Izuku Midoriya on a massive shadowy bear. She knew then and there Mirio would have competition for the #1 place. Her first gate experience with him and the 2 top 10 heroes may have been scary, but one of the best and funnest times she had had for a long time. She did grow in power to become a higher A rank that borders on low S from that gate alone. She occasionally did the weaker ones like the E and D rank gates with some other sidekicks to practice her energy manipulation and started seeing the difference. Like during the fight with the Deva body, she never knew she could go over 100%. Now she has a new attack, but she would have to train for it. It was all because of one person, the one who was facing off against the red-haired man with the weird eyes. A small smile came over her face looking at her crush. I added this as I wanted to have some more background. I am trying to write more realistically with human behavior like greed, hunger, power, jealousness, and other emotions, but I don't know how I am doing with it. She will be the next girl added to the harem. End of Nijire's story. Whilst that was happening, Izuku was the one to deal with pain. The reason was that Izuku didn't want to become over-reliant on his shadows and grow his skills. Yes, having his shadows to help him clear out dungeons is cool, but just before meeting Kathleen aka Star and Stripe, he was the weakest national rank hero. Don't get him wrong, being the 10th strongest recognized hero or a hero in training was amazing, but after being punched by All Might all those months ago, he had a new goal: to become the strongest. All Might was slowly retiring. He will of course patrol, but less often, and concentrate helping the next generation of heroes and his secret successor. Fighting 1v1 against an opponent who was definitely a mid-level captain would surely improve his skills. Some more levels on his skills would be good, and an evolution would be a bonus. Jumping forward, he used the skill Sprint and rushed towards the original body of Pain. The red-haired expected the turn of events and started gathering his own power to form a protective barrier to block Izuku's kick. After holding for 2 seconds, Izuku sent out shadow tendrils making spikes under the red head. Pain absorbing the energy attack, then countered by sending an almighty push. Izuku doing the same used his control over gravity to pull Pain with him. Meeting halfway, the duo continued their beautiful dance of fists and kicks whilst Pain infused himself with the Azura powers. Grunting, Izuku jumped back. He sent out his bloodlust, then using Black Whip, he took hold of Pain and swung him smashing face first into the cliff, making some rocks fall on the body. Not giving up, Pain sent out 3 summons of his, an ox, rhino, and the bird which he stood upon. Fluffy and the scorpions were dealing with the land summons whilst Izuku shot up using his skill Float to fly near the long-necked bird. This was a perfect time to use some of his less used skills to fight Pain off. Getting his dagger ready, he rushed into the airspace of the bird and with the skill Vital Strick 3 times stabbed the bird, making it start to fall. Pain sent out 5 black rods, with one of them hitting Izuku's cloak but not piercing it. Using the skill Fire Manipulation and skill Bloodlust, he sent out a fiery wave of fire induced with Bloodlust. It may have cost him 500 MP, but having some of the hair burnt off from Izuku's opponent was worth it. Conan was on her last few breaths. She was finally defeated when Uriel came up with a specific light-based attack that can deal a continuous amount of damage on paper. With that attack, she was shot in 2 locations, her wings and her arm. If she tried to reform now, then she would have been without her legs and arm. She wanted to try her final technique of splitting the land and making the inside explode, but that sadly didn't work due to Uriel, the smartest angel in Izuku's army. Now she was lying down waiting for what awaited her in her afterlife. But she secretly hoped for being turned into a shadow, as she realized that the personalities stayed the same, but different loyalties laid. With that, she breathed her final breath with a small smile and a tear coming from her right eye. This actually made me cry. Uriel made sure that she was dead by checking her pulse and then fully closing her eyes. Conan, Angel of Death, has been defeated. When Izuku saw the message that 2 of the 4 died, he backed off while sending some Black Whip and Pain, who dodged. With a mental, Baru and Slimy went for Pain with Uriel and Dracula, and some other shadows went for Pain whilst Izuku went to the fallen bodies. Arise! He muttered it twice, but both shadows arose from the ground. Orochimaru had a light gray tone of shadowed skin with slitted yellow shadowed eyes. He noticed that Orochimaru had the Kusanagi, but there was the original Kusanagi on the floor near him. The difference was that Orochimaru had a black version of what he has now. Orochimaru LV.1 Captain. Conan had her skin light blue whilst her hair was a purple shade. Her rose had a darker purple tint to it. The difference was now that she had legs and wings at the same time, but made out of paper were the wings. Now she didn't have to lose her legs to gain wings. With that, the 2 Akatsuki members rushed towards Pain. Conan LV.1 Captain. Izuku saw that the redhead was having a little more trouble when he introduced his old friend Conan and the snake Sannin Orochimaru. With that, the teen rushed at Toby with his skill. Sprint full force, surprising the ninja, and it allowed him to hiss the face of the man, cracking the mask a bit. During the whole ordeal, Izuku realized the same thing as Nijire did. Toby could only attack you when he was solid, meaning that was the only chance to strike. There was a smirk under Toby's masked face, his red eye spinning wildly, waiting for the next move that will happen. When nothing happened for a couple of seconds, he started. Firstly, Toby went through some kind of hand signs, then shot out a massive wave of fire that was heading towards Izuku and Nijire. Kisame and some water spirits shot water, dousing the flames. This allowed Izuku to move through the mist with his senses high on alert. When Toby was just appearing next to him, he used the skill Gravity Manipulation imbued with his MP to form his finishing move. Whispering, he said whilst crossing his middle over his pointer finger upwards, "Domain Expansion. Total Darkness." With that, Toby was inside a black void. His Sharingan was not working properly, meaning that he couldn't escape from that prison. The taxing attack was in a way beautiful but deadly anyways. Inside, Toby was being consumed by the shadows all around him, with more whip-like structures being present. For him, he thought it was 3 days, but in reality was only a couple of seconds of mind-breaking. Toby, the masked Uchiha, was defeated. A limp body was the answer. No Izunami or Izunagi could have saved Toby, otherwise known as Obito Uchiha, from Izuku's final technique. There are 2 variants to the technique, one for humans and the other for monsters, aka making them go unconscious and killing them respectfully. Now Izuku was panting, as this technique does involve using his fatigue Oswell as his mana. Looking over at Pain, he saw all of the shadows starting to tear the last monster up. Izuku just smirked, seeing that all of the original shadows improved well. Pain has been defeated. Alarm! Quest: Defeat the Akatsuki. Part 1 quest of the Key Collection. Completed. Akatsuki was originally a group of 11th-class missing ninjas from a universe far away. Defeat the 11 to continue with your collection rewards. Reward 1. Gate Key 2/. Reward 2. Random skill from the opponent's. Reward 3. Killed. November 11th. Do you want to collect the rewards? Yes/no. All levels have been calculated from this dungeon. You leveled up 9 times. You are level 154. Special reward for reaching LV 154. Do you want to receive it? Yes/no. He wobbled towards Nijire and sat next to her. We did it. She just smiled and leaned over, laying her head on Izuku's shoulder. He ignored all of those messages and looked at Nijire by the corner of his eye. We sure did. A smile was etched on her face. Doing something bold, she moved her hand towards Izuku's one and held his. This shocked Izuku, but let his hand squeeze Nijire's in comfort. Thank you. I should be saying thank you, the 17-year-old asked in confusion. He really was thankful. Without her, the battle would have been different. She shook her head lightly. I should be thanking you. Because of you, I am getting stronger and discovering things I never knew about myself, like doing the 120%. You believe that I am strong but know my limits and gently push them for me to grow stronger. You are one of the strongest in the world, and yet you are not like some of the top 10 heroes. You don't boost other egos and not yourself. Now Nijire took her chance. Since I saw you in the sports festival with Fluffy, I knew I had to meet you. Meeting you with Rikyu-sensei was a boon. Getting to know you was something else I enjoyed. Izuku was listening to it all, not interrupting her. Then she looked at him with her eyes brimming in determination and love, shocking the young man, but he had a gentle smile on his face. You are compassionate. helpful, truthful, and are not afraid to speak your mind. And that's a wrap for What If Deku Had Solo Leveling System, Part 6. The intensity just keeps ramping up, and trust me, what's coming next is going to blow your mind. If you want to see more, hit that like button. Let's crush 100 likes and keep this story going strong. Big shout out once again to Michael Zilanka. Seriously, this series wouldn't be the same without them. And to all my legendary viewers, you guys are the reason we keep pushing forward. Your support means everything. Drop your theories in the comments. What's Deku's next move? What insane power-up is coming? Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay strong, stay legendary. Chronos out.